Chapter 277. Night. Bathed in the warmth of the fire dragon air conditioner, List took out a flame potion and a thorn potion from the gem space. The flame potion is the magic potion made from the flame mushroom, and the thorn potion is the magic potion made from the fast-growing magic thorns. For convenience of distinction, it is a concise name. List first took the thorn potion, then waited a moment, and then took the flame potion. Then he began to close his eyes and run his chi, mobilizing the power of his limbs to absorb the magic of the potion. At the same time, he was constantly learning the different effects of taking the two potions in different ways. The difference in physique caused even the same potion, different night would have different effects and ways of taking it. To find the most suitable way to take it, he could get twice the result with half the effort. How can he find it? It takes time and constant experimentation. At present, List had taken 3 Thorns potions and had a preliminary understanding of some of the effects of the Thorns potion. He was adjusting the dosage and time interval between the Thorns potion and the Flame potion to complete the correct test of the potion. About 20 minutes later, List slowly opened his eyes and felt the total amount of chi in his body, which had quietly risen a notch, and showed a gratified smile. Every day he could feel his own strength progress. This kind of refreshing feeling is difficult for ordinary people to experience. The practice of the elite Earth Knight is a potion trial, constantly trying to take the potion, so that the body can more easily absorb the magic of the potion and break through the total amount of magic that the cells in various parts of the body can hold. He thought, took out a pen and paper, and filled out the form above. This form records the different doses and time intervals of taking the potion, and the different effects. When taken more times, the data in the form is drawn into a curve chart, and it is easy to judge the best way to take the potion. This is a scientific method. Science is induction and summary. Compared to the average knight, he can explore the use of the potion at will, taking more today and less tomorrow. List's scientific method is simple, fast, efficient, and accurate. Although I don't know the fundamental principles of chi practice, as a transmigrator, my understanding and grasp of practice is definitely far better than that of the Aborigines. He believed that even the Emperor's son might not be able to find a suitable way to consume the potion faster than him. I'm very confident that I can become a Sky Knight before the age of 22. The quill didn't stop. List took out another thick piece of paper. There was also a table on the paper. It was a data comparison chart. It was a comparison of drug use in air-conditioned rooms and non-air-conditioned rooms. Because of the cold winter weather, when List took pills, he would choose to do it in the study room and enjoy the warmth of the Fire Dragon air conditioner. However, on the first day he discovered some problems. The effects of the pills he took seemed to have increased. At first, he did not pay much attention to it. After all, he had been taking pills in the study, and the effects were very good. But when he went to Tulip Castle and then to Longtaro Castle, he clearly felt that taking pills outside was not as good as taking pills at home. Such a comparison made him realize that it was definitely due to the influence of the environment. It was easy to associate it with the fire dragon magic in the study. So he began to record the different effects of taking potions in the fire dragon magic environment and the ordinary environment. In the past few days, a lot of data has been recorded. In the study room and outside the study room, there is a stark difference in the effect. With the bonus of the fire dragon magic, the effect of taking the flame potion increases by about 5% to 2%. The thorns potion has only been taken 3 times, and it is still impossible to judge the increase, but it should have an effect. I guess the effect of the fire dragon magic is to stimulate my fire-attributed chi. He could feel that the chi in his body was more active in the radiation range of the magic fire dragon. At the same time, the size of the magic fire dragon also determines the effect of the increase. On the premise that it would not burn people to death, List made a small magic fire dragon the size of a water tank, using the magic capacity of a whole fire dragon pot. The effect is to increase the effect of the flame potion to about 10%. Compared with the palm-sized magic fire dragon, it can reach a 7% increase. The magic fire dragon the size of a water tank has increased its magic capacity by 20 times, but the effect of the increase is only 48 times, which is not obvious. Moreover, the magic fire dragon the size of a water tank can almost heat him to death, and he can't concentrate on the potion. So after comprehensive consideration, he still chose to take the potion in the study room. The temperature is just right, will not cause him to be distracted when taking the potion, and can concentrate from beginning to end. The potion continued, and the form was recorded. From January 9th back to Flower Town, 2 weeks had passed, and it was January 24th. The 8 blizzard beasts were strong, fighting while drinking milk, and their eyelids often trembled, which was the rhythm of opening their eyes. List began to feed them himself, forbidding others to enter the room. The siren Achi lived in the castle, eating fruit and playing with the little elf Ella. She was not too depressed, but she replenished the seawater once in the middle. It was to pull her to the beach and let her soak in the sea for 2 hours. At that time, only List was on the beach, standing on a snow-covered rock, looking at the siren Achi floating in the sea, constantly playing, and his mood was as bright as the sun in the sky. After more than a week of getting along, he has inquired all the information about the siren Achi. The siren born in the sea is worthy of being called the elves of the sea. Their birth process is similar to that of the elves. One is the condensation of the essence of plants, the other is the condensation of the essence of seawater. One can control the worm stalk and affect the growth of plants. The other can control its own shell and the seawater in the shell, and control the surrounding seawater. It's just that the elves need to evolve from sprite worms, and it is only at the great sprite level that they have the intelligence of an adult. The siren has the intelligence of an adult from the beginning. Her calves are gradually growing, and the growth of feet means adulthood, but her lifespan is not clear. Achi is only a minor siren, growing up alone in the sea. The sea will tell her part of the information, and the rest is learned by listening to human ships. 41 years, she learned Serpentine. But she still retains the innocence and purity of the elves. The sea where Achi lives may be between Golden Island and Nova Island. She has seen many ships, all of which have flags like wheat ears. That is the flag of the Golden Wheat family and the Golden Wheat family. The Golden Wheat family is the Marquis family, and their fief is Golden Island. The Golden Wheat family is the Count family, and their fief is Nova Island. The two families had separated a few generations ago, and their flags were the curved ears of a wheat tree, which was not much different. List's brother, Levis, and Marquis Roderick's daughter, Loria Golden Wheat Ear, seemed to have begun to date. He did not deliberately inquire about it, and most of the time he only cared about himself. After swimming in the sea for 2 hours, the siren docked obediently. Siren Achi docked obediently. Although she hadn't found the mid-level sea monster Gramita recently, she couldn't guarantee that it had left. List, I have replenished the seawater. Let's go back quickly. Ella must be impatient. Now, Achi's Serpentine is getting more and more fluent, and her personality is getting more and more lively. She no longer has any estrangement with List. Stretching out, her beautiful curves and white skin dazzled List's eyes. Chapter 278. It was close to the time when the Blizzard Beast opened its eyes. As if to celebrate the upcoming Blizzard Beast Legion, Frank Distiller, the owner of the brewery, ran all the way to the castle and reported to List. "My lord, we have distilled pure white wine." Distilled? List was overjoyed, but his face remained calm. "How is the quality of the flower wine? Compared with the gin you left in the brewery, there may be some differences in taste. The flower wine is not strong enough, but it is softer and has its own advantages. Softer than gin. If it really meets the standard, I will give you a big reward." The group quickly rushed to the brewery, where Frank asked the apprentices to take out the brewed white wine. There were several large barrels filled with white wine that was worth more than silver. The white wine in the barrel could not be faked at all, and it no longer smelled stinky and sour. We took the pot distillation and found that although the first pot was very strong, the taste was not good. Until we reloaded the raw materials and started the second pot, the distilled white wine tasted very pure, without any mixed taste, and could reach the quality for sale. List tasted the second pot of distilled white wine. He only felt that the mouth had reached the spiciness of the white wine. After tasting it for a moment and then recalling the taste of the gin, He suddenly felt that each had its own advantages, and it was hard to say who was good and who was bad. Go and call Gort. He turned and ordered Thomas, the manservant. A moment later, Gort hurried over. My lord, is the flower wine ready? Oh my God, I can't wait to taste it. Seeing Gort's drunkard posture, Liszt scolded him with dissatisfaction. Don't you try the taste of the flower wine every day? The town consultant's greatest hobby in life is to drink and brag. Before the success of the flower wine, the quality of the raw pulp was poor, but he still came to the brewery every day after work to get some inferior raw pulp, and got drunk before going home to sleep. Hey. With a smile, Gort did not refute. Liszt pointed to the newly brewed high-quality raw pulp and said, You are an expert in wine tasting. You taste it, compare it with gin, and give me a comprehensive analysis. As you wish, my lord. Gort grabbed the wine pot in a hurry, raised his head and took a sip of the fresh flower wine, then closed his eyes and shook his head. After a while, he opened his eyes, which were shining brightly. My lord, the night's glory has blessed me. Flower wine is definitely comparable to gin. It has a completely different taste, but it is equally intoxicating. Next, he took a sip of the pulp and compared the difference between gin and flower wine. One was high in intensity and had a spicy taste, but the aftereffects were strong, and it was easy to go to the head. The other was slightly lower in intensity, but it had a soft taste and a small aftereffect, so it was not easy to go to the head. I think that after the flower wine goes on the market, it will definitely sell better than gin because it has a small aftereffect so that the nobles can drink it from before the banquet to after the banquet. Gin can't last as long. Flower wine can be suitable for more aristocrats to drink, even those aristocratic ladies. In the end, Gort was already in a half-drunk state, holding the wine pot and raising his thumb. For me, flower wine is a grade worse than gin, but for more aristocrats it is a higher grade of good wine. It is the best. After listening to his analysis, Wang Chong was stunned. Liszt has a general understanding that gin is equivalent to Russian vodka, strong enough. Flower wine is equivalent to Beijing erguotu, not strong enough but soft. Old drunkards may choose vodka, drinking it is refreshing, but more people can accept erguotu, which is suitable for family banquets. Erguotu? It seems that flower wine is a liquor distilled in the second pot. Is that its real meaning? Liszt thought a little. He doesn't drink often and his knowledge of liquor is still too little. He turned and asked Frank, Is flower wine graded? According to what I said, how many grades are there? According to your idea, we set the pure second pot of raw pulp as the highest grade. The first pot of referment raw pulp mixed with the second pot of raw pulp is the second grade. The first pot of referment raw pulp is the third grade. The third pot of referment raw pulp mixed with the second pot of referment raw pulp is the fourth grade. The third pot of referment raw pulp is the most inferior. Frank and others were very meticulous. Obviously, they were scolded by Liszt last time. They did their best work before they dared to report to the castle. The most inferior flower wine, take it out for consultant Gort to taste. After drinking too much of the second pot of the highest grade raw pulp, and then drinking the third pot of the lowest grade raw pulp, Gort almost sprayed it out. The taste is very mixed. It is only a little better than the previous flower wine raw pulp. It should not be on the market at all. Then Gort drank several other grades of raw pulp, and the evaluation was different. The first 3 grades can be sold as liquor, but the last 2 grades are not qualified. Liszt has understood. With the first 3 grades of liquor, the flower wine will be a great success, and the brewery will become the largest source of gold coins in Flower Town and the cornerstone of Liszt's career development. From now on, the brewery will be the top secret of Flower Town, and no one is allowed to enter or leave at will. Patrols will be sent around 24 hours a day to directly separate it from other workshops. The winemakers who have mastered the technology will be strictly protected. Consultant Gort, can you hear me clearly? Don't worry, sir. I'm just a little drunk. I've listened to your instructions very clearly. I'll definitely treat the brewery as a top priority. Burp. Gort swayed his body and even burped. Seeing this, Liszt could not trust him and sent someone to call Isaiah, the administrative officer, and gave the task to the other party. Then Liszt began to reward. I promised you that as long as you brew qualified flour wine, there will be gold and silver coins. Now, Frank Distiller, Beardang Hunt Era, I will reward you each with 1 gold coin, and the apprentices involved in the brewing 20 silver coins each. Praise the Lord! Thank you, Lord, for your generous reward. The winemakers and apprentices took the gold and silver coins and thanked him excitedly. Liszt encouraged and urged them to work hard, and there would be many benefits in the future. Brewing wine is very simple. It is far more difficult to brew qualified liquor than imagined. Fortunately, the winemakers finally brewed real liquor under the guidance of his distillation technology. In fact, the one who should be rewarded the most is me. Alas, forget it, I'd better hide my achievements and fame. There is no need to care about the gains and losses of this honor with a few serfs. After praising himself in his heart, Liszt immediately took action to prepare for the flour wine to go on the market. First, he sent someone to inform Levis. The flour wine business needs the strong cooperation of Levis in order to quickly expand the production scale, open sales channels, and recover funds in a short time. Chapter 279. This chapter is My Horse Feeds the Sheep. Levis not only sent his tutor, Frank, but also came to Flour Town in person. Liszt, has the flour brew bin successfully improved? Of course, you can taste it yourself. I can't miss this. 3 kinds of flour wine that can be sold on the market have been delivered to the castle, so Levis can taste the flour wine in the castle. First, he drank the 3rd grade, the lowest grade of flour wine. When the white wine entered his mouth, his eyes immediately lit up. Well, not bad, it's pure and tasteless. It can be sold. Then he drank the 2nd grade of flour wine. This tastes better, but the wine is a little soft. Finally, there was the highest grade of flour wine. After drinking it, he had a full 3 minutes of aftertaste before he exclaimed excitedly, "What a good wine! Liszt, we are rich." The quality of flour wine is no less than that of gin. These are 2 different tastes of white wine. Flour wine is more suitable for aristocratic banquets. His evaluation was similar to that of Gort. They both saw the vast market behind the flour wine. So next, we should discuss how to expand the brewing scale and how to sell it on the market. Liszt doesn't like drinking, but he is very clear about the popularity of the white wine market. Alcohol may not be a panacea, but when it works, it can numb people's senses and relieve all pain and stress. It allows people to escape from all kinds of difficulties and frustrations in reality and enjoy that moment of haziness and peace, as if the soul is sublimated. Levis picked up his teacup, trying to make himself look less urgent. But his anxious eyes betrayed his thoughts. Leave the sales to me. Coral Island will definitely be dominated by flour wine. Red Crab Island will also be dominated by flour wine. I can also sell it to Golden Island, but how do you plan to arrange the production of flour wine? Expand the scale of the brewing workshop and recruit more winemakers and winemaking apprentices. Flour Town is understaffed. Brother, you have to support me and sell me a batch of your winemakers. I will give you 10 winemakers directly. Levis waved his hand. But they don't know how to brew white wine. You have to teach them the technique. Liszt got straight to the point. Give me their families as well. Only then will I be willing to teach them how to brew wine. Levis glared at him. You still don't believe me? Forget it. Send their families over. Don't forget about the materials. There is a wide range of materials for brewing liquor. Grains, fruits, taro, and sweet potatoes can all be used to brew liquor. However, the flour wine is mainly made of corn. I will not change the main material for brewing in a short time. In the future, I will study other grain brewing techniques as appropriate. Tulip Castle doesn't have a lot of corn, but we don't have much to eat either. I'll send them all to you. Tulip Castle's corn alone is not enough. You had better plant another batch of corn this year and buy a batch of corn from various places. As the saying goes, wine is food. The yield of grain was between 25% and 45%. A caddy of grain could not produce half a caddy of wine. In ancient times, when there was not enough food to eat, The government would forbid private brewing to prevent wasting food and expanding famine. Because corn is not the staple food of Coral Island, List chose to brew wine with corn. He may have become a noble and his ass is crooked in the ruling class, but he still has kindness in his heart. He doesn't want to take away the only rations of the serfs on the island because of the liquor business. However, no matter how he thinks about it, there will still be a batch of serfs' rations that will be used to brew wine. He could only try to remind him, "Brother, brewing wine will waste a lot of food. I hope to buy corn from the outer islands as much as possible, or give a certain tax subsidy to the serfs who grow corn." Levis looked disapproving. "You don't have to worry about such a small thing. The serfs have their own reasonable arrangements. I will ensure that there is enough corn for you to brew wine, and it will not delay the production of flour wine." Seeing this, List could only sigh in his heart. Then he shook off these compassionate thoughts and said, "Iron. I also need a batch of iron, at least 10,000 gene, for making wine-making utensils. Didn't you just get 13,000 gene of iron from Tulip Castle? I bought those myself. You will provide the raw materials for the brewery according to the agreement." "I can't get so much iron. I have to get it from Tulip Castle's warehouse. In that case, the profits from the liquor business will definitely be taken away by others." Levis frowned. "Brother, it is right to be divided the profits. Although the flour wine is a deal between the two of us, if we leave others behind, Father may not say it on the surface, but he will have complaints in his heart." "You are being sarcastic." Levis was very unhappy. "I provide the raw materials and I am responsible for the sales. I only account for 60% of the profits. You only provide the technology and even the winemaker is sent by me, so you get 40% of the profits. Now, even the mouths of the other people in Tulip Castle have to be taken care of by me. Don't you think it's too cruel? If it weren't for my technology, brother, you wouldn't be able to do the liquor business. Think about it, once the flour wine is spread, how many gold coins can be brought in every year and how many more potions can be added for you. Maybe within a year you can become a Sky Knight." Levis is 24 years old this year and will be 25 years old a year later. If he can really become a Sky Knight at the age of 25, it will at least prove that his talent is no worse than that of the Count. These words hit Levis's nerve. He grabbed his hair, gritted his teeth and nodded. "Okay, 13,000 gene of iron, I will pay, but the flour wine must be produced on a large scale as soon as possible. Of course, the technology has matured, just waiting for the materials to be ready." After List finished talking about the brewing materials, he suddenly thought of the packaging problem. "How are you going to sell the flour wine?" "I will sell it as gin is sold. The liquor market on Coral Island will only have flour wine in the future. I will discuss it with my cousin on Red Crab Island. It will be very simple to take it down. Golden Island can be handed over to Luolia to sell. She should be able to eat Golden Island and Nova Island together." List became interested. "Is Luolia sure to be my sister-in-law?" Levis smiled and beamed with joy. "Do you think I was just fighting during the development order? My dear brother, you still have a lot to learn. Marquis Roderick has approved my union with Luolia. I will go to Golden Island in March to confirm things. It seems that this matter is already clear." List gave a thumbs up and returned to the topic. "There are 3 grades of flour wine. Do you want to package it?" "What packaging? Just make it the same as gin. I'll get the pottery workshop to make a batch of clay pots to use as wine bottles," Levis replied directly. "That's not right. Flour wine should be distinguished from gin, so that the nobles can see it at a glance." List rejected Levis's idea and said, 10-year flour wine, packaged in wooden bottles, carved with a yellow tulip, sold for 5 to 15 silver coins, occupying the small aristocratic market. 50-year flour wine, packaged in pottery bottles, carved with a red tulip, sold for 50 to 80 silver coins, occupying the middle aristocratic market. 100-year flour wine, packaged in jade bottles, carved with a black tulip, sold for as much as it is expensive, limited, mainly for high-ranking aristocrats. "Where did you get the 10-year-old and 100-year-old wine?" Levis was surprised. Chapter 280. So 10 years and 100 years of aging are all deceiving? It's not deceiving, it's propaganda. But flower wine is just freshly brewed liquor. It has not been aged at all. How much do you think the taste of flower wine is worse than gin? Since there is not much difference between the two, why can gin be called a cellar wine that has been aged for many years? Because it is really an old wine that has been in the cellar for many years. Liszt suddenly felt that Levis was really naive. The quality of gin is formed because of cellar aging. The quality of flower wine is not inferior to it, so it can also be called cellar aging. There is no conflict, and our positioning is very clear. The three grades clearly distinguish the gap in status and can strengthen all levels of aristocracy. Do you really think this is better? Of course, no one knows how we brew it. If we say it is 100 years old, then it is 100 years old. Wooden bottles and pottery bottles are very simple, but jade bottles, wouldn't they be too expensive? You can make less jade bottles of flower wine and convert the value of the jade bottles into it when you sell it. You can also package it in crystal bottles. Anyway, it reflects the grade of flower wine. You can even carve a bottle out of gems and let my father give it to the Grand Duke for publicity. Give it to the Grand Duke? Of course, the Grand Duke drinks flower wine. What confidence do those aristocrats have to refuse flower wine? The Grand Duke has a liquor industry under his command. He doesn't need to pay tribute at all. Just ask the Grand Duke to taste it. As long as the flower wine is not sold in Blue Dragon Island, it will not threaten the Grand Duke's liquor industry. Will the Grand Duke not give his father a little face? As the sword saint who founded the Earl family, Lee William Tulip is definitely a high-level figure in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. The Grand Duke will definitely win over such a new noble to check and balance the old Marquis family. As long as Lee William and the Grand Duke clearly explain the sales scope of flower wine, there will be no conflict at all. If the Grand Duke is greedy and doesn't want the Tulip family to occupy the Grand Duchy of Sapphire's liquor market, flower wine can be sold to the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, or even the Eagle Kingdom. Smuggling liquor is also one of the businesses of many fleet caravans. The only difference is the problem of selling more and less. Levis was still thinking. On the other side, Frank reminded him, Levis, regardless of whether the tribute to the Archduke succeeds or not, it will not affect our interests. If we adopt Baron Liszt's suggestion of packaging the wine in different grades, it will only cost us a little. If it fails, we can return to the method of selling gin. It is acceptable. Since that's the case, let's give it a try. The flower brew business, so far, Liszt and Levis have discussed it clearly. The rest is for their respective subordinates to manage it. There was no need for the Lord to personally participate. When I came here, I heard that your docent had offspring, 8 little flying dust dogs. Levis quickly diverted his attention. Let me take a look. This is the descendant of World of Warcraft. I'm sorry, big brother. They haven't opened their eyes yet. It's not suitable for them to see people for the time being. They haven't opened their eyes. Levis exclaimed. They haven't opened their eyes? Liszt, aren't we brothers? I've never mistreated you. Needless to say, Liszt has understood Levis's meaning. He wants the little blizzard beasts. But he will never give it, even if the other party pays for it, he will not sell it. Brother, although this is the descendant of World of Warcraft, their mother is just an ordinary flying dust dog. Dosen was not fully evolved at that time, so this batch of descendants is likely to be low-level World of Warcraft. Wait for the next batch. If the next batch of puppies is born, I will definitely sell them to you. After several excuses, seeing Liszt's firm attitude, Levis was very dissatisfied. But for the sake of the next batch of puppies, he could only bear it. Then it's settled. The next batch of flying dust dogs must be sold to me. Well said. Liszt nodded and agreed. It was more of a bluff. Not to mention how to sell them and how many he would sell, it is doubtful whether Stupid Woman can get pregnant again. The higher the bloodline of World of Warcraft, the more difficult it is to have children. Intermediate World of Warcraft Dosen, after the transformation of his bloodline, can he make Stupid Woman pregnant again? It is debatable. Perhaps these 8 little blizzard beasts are the only descendants that Dosen can leave behind as a flying dust dog. Luncheon. drinking fresh flower wine. Levis didn't know if it was because the liquor business was about to make money, he was too excited, or because he didn't get a blizzard beast. In short, he drank too much and was so drunk that he couldn't tell north from south. He put his arm around List's shoulder and his mouth was full of alcohol. List, I'm beginning to envy you. You left Tulip Castle, and the night's glory favored you. Everyone began to say that you are the son of glory. I'm always bound in the castle, Lytton. Complaining after drinking, List was helpless. In order not to let the family scandal spread, he directly dismissed everyone at the banquet. Levis said a lot of drunken talk about how the Count was biased towards Lytton, how his own resources were robbed, how much pressure the Sky Knight was under, how his luck was not as good as List's, how Tatiana was pregnant, but he had to abort the child for Rolia. Then, with a snap, he fell on the table. List called the servant and helped Levis into the carriage. He did not ask him to stay the night in the castle. Mr. Frank, take care of Levis. Please rest assured. At this time, Captain Lydon, who was guarding Levis, came over and glanced at Londo standing under the apple tree. He sighed. Baron List, Londo is in Flower Town. Please take care of him. Londo Kettle was his illegitimate child. Even though he had been recognized by the family, he still could not give more support. Captain Lydon, don't you want to talk to Londo? There is no need. Lydon Kettle bowed. I will escort Sir Levis back to Tulip Castle first. If you have time, I hope you can come to Flower Town as a guest. You are always welcome. The convoy set off. Levis came in high spirits and went back drunk. It was a rewarding trip. The flower brew business was a great help to him and to List. Standing in front of the castle window, List drank the only remaining glass of dragon milk. The stimulation of the residual alcohol made him excited. With the liquor business, Levis can probably be promoted to a Sky Knight. As for me, I will definitely be promoted to a Sky Knight. At that time, the Tulip family will have 3 Sky Knights. I am afraid that the Count will not be promoted to a Marquis. The father and son trio went to the battlefield together. As long as they did not encounter a Dragon Knight, it would definitely be the end of a sweep. Sooner or later, they would be promoted to a Marquis. However, the Marquis family is by no means my goal. It is just a stop on my way to riding a dragon. With my talent, plus the wealth brought by the development of the territory, it is very likely that I will be promoted to a Sky Knight before the age of 22. It will take another 5 or 6 years for the Sky Knight to complete, and then I will look for clues about the dragon. Find the dragon and ride it. A small goal in life is completed. Chapter 281. The workshop area is separately planned for a huge factory area for the expansion of the winemaking workshop. The carpentry shop, blacksmith shop, bonesmith shop, and hoop barrel shop, under the organization of officials, work together to make winemaking utensils from morning to night. Even the Brad family, who presides over the crystal workshop but can only carve volcanic glass all day long, has received a new task to carve some key equipment with volcanic glass. The town is bustling and the castle is as calm as ever. It's just that, on the shelf of List's study, there are some more bottles of flower wine. He doesn't want to drink it, but to keep it as a souvenir. These are the real raw pulp of flower wine. After completing today's night cultivation class, List went back to the bathroom to take a bath and then went to the worm room. He chatted with the Sirene Chi and enjoyed the beautiful scenery by the way. Recently, the Sirene Chi has been obsessed with reading all kinds of books. She can't read, so List often teaches her. He doesn't know if it's a racial talent, but she learns things very quickly and soon remembers a lot of snake language and can read independently. She likes to study those magic books and is very curious about magic. At this time, the shell is open. The thorn sprite Ella is soaking in the sea, which is a part of a chi. List touched it with his hand. It's not much different from ordinary seawater. It's probably warmer and not as cold as ordinary seawater. It's hard to imagine that the seawater will eventually grow into a chi's feet. List, you're here. Well, a chi is still reading? I'm reading Fredo's Fireball. Fredo Truth, the magic apprentice, is so funny. He rubbed the fireball with the back of his hand. He's silly. Achi closed the book and smiled sweetly. Ella closed her eyes and heard List's voice. She opened her eyes and looked at List, then continued to soak in the sea water, enjoying the warmth very comfortably. Behind it, there are 9 sprite worms of different colors, also swimming in the shell sea. There's no need to guess that it was Ella who threw the sprite worms in. It's funny, but magicians are human beings with abnormal ideas. List poked Ella's belly with his hand, only to poke Ella away. They are in the shell. Will they disturb your reading? No, Ella and the bugs are very quiet. Only here will it be quiet. Outside, Ella is a tyrant in Flower Town. Hearing bad things about herself, Ella was not happy. She popped her head out of the sea and shouted "wow" in protest. However, after being glared at by List, it obediently retracted its head and continued to soak in the bath. They chatted for a while. Achi suddenly raised her hand. List, do you think magic should be released like this? As she spoke, she seemed to be gathering magic power. Meditate to form a bridge between spirit and magic power, to be intimate with them, to experience them. I can only be compatible with the magic of the water attribute. They are like many docile babies that can listen to my call. Then, something unexpected happened to List. Her slender jade-like hands actually condensed a ball of water little by little. This ball of water twisted slowly and then elongated into a spiral shape of an arrow. I read a magic book about water arrow. I think the magic principles recorded in the book are very simple, and I seem to be able to do it easily. The crystal water arrow was so clear and real. List cast magic eyes to observe and clearly saw that the magic of the water arrow originated from the free magic in the air, not from Achi's own magic. This was the magic released by the magician. It was unexpected that it would be formed in the hands of the siren. Achi, you release the water arrow outside the window. Oh! Achi obediently pushed her hand, and the water arrow, like a real arrow, flew out of the window and eventually disappeared into the sky. The water arrow flew out. List, did I learn the magic water arrow? You learned it. List's eyes lit up. He had overestimated the role of the siren as much as possible, thinking that this was a strategic help for him to set off the era of navigation. But now it must be corrected. The siren can not only play an important role in navigation, but she also has the potential to become a magician, a water magician. At this moment, he had an irresistible idea to cultivate the siren Achi into a great water magician, or even a water magician. With her self-taught talent, it seems that it is not impossible for her to become a water magician. In his excitement, he couldn't help but reach out and rub the siren's blue hair. I will collect all the magic books that record water magic. You can concentrate on water magic and strive to become a siren magician in the future. Can Achi be called a magician? Of course, as long as you work hard. Yeah! One happy event after another. The flower brew was successfully introduced, the siren Achi learned magic, and then, List fed the little blizzard beasts for half a month. Finally, at the end of January, they opened their eyes one after another. The first person they saw was List. That look represented their recognition of him as their master. Perhaps this so-called recognition of a master has not reached the level of unswerving loyalty, but it means that the 8 little blizzard beasts all regard List as the closest person, a father or a mother. In the future, they will be slowly trained and cultivated, and like Dosen, they will listen to List. How should I name them? List was a little embarrassed. There were 8 in a row, all covered with black hair, about the same size, and it was difficult to distinguish them from each other. In fact, List has forgotten the order in which they were born. Finally, referring to the way he treated Dosen, List decided to make a collar for each of the 8 blizzard beasts. The collar is decorated with the nameplate of each one. The color of the nameplate must be different so that at first glance, one can tell which one is which and which one is not called the wrong name. He also decided to keep the blizzard beasts separately. He had raised dogs before, so he knew the horror of a litter of dogs. Once they go crazy, they will destroy the world. They will be raised and trained separately. When all the blizzard beasts can reach a state of obedience, they will be gathered together for military training. They will be prepared for the battlefield in the future. Master, all 4 kennels have been covered with cotton mats, and the blizzard beasts can be moved in. The dog collars you ordered to make have also been delivered by the leathersmith's shop, a total of 8 pairs. Butler Carter walked into the room and said, "Then move out today and clean the entertainment room carefully. Especially the smell must be removed. It is too unpleasant." "I will tell Mrs. Morrison to deal with it." Carter asked again, "So what names do you want to engrave on the nameplates of the 8 blizzard beasts?" "Wait until I think about it first." "Yes." When the servant began to send the 8 little blizzard beasts one by one into the kennels separated into 4 positions, List waved his hand and called out the smoke mission. Completed the mission and rewarded 8 intermediate World of Warcraft blizzard beasts. Seeing the smoke serpentines, List smiled faintly. Sure enough. Chapter 282. Mission. Because the flowers has reduced the number of trips to the sea, there is not enough wood for the construction of Black Horse Island. Marcus decided to cut the sporadic trees on the island, but encountered a deadly bee attack. Please clear the beehive to prevent more people from being stung by the bees. Reward: a sprite worm. The smoke serpentines flowed gently in front of his eyes, and the content was reflected in List's mind. Very good. Finally, there is a sprite worm reward. Since obtaining the corn grass sprite worm, he has not harvested any sprite worms for 2 whole months. Of course, this has something to do with the arrival of winter and most of the plants stop growing, but List is very regretful. Sprite worms are the inseparable productivity of the Lord. Now, finally, there is a new mission, and the reward is a sprite worm. I don't know what kind of sprite worm it is, but there are not many clues. Anyway, let's get rid of the beehive first. List was full of fighting spirit. It is not difficult to get rid of the beehive. One must know that the knight has a full body armor. During the time when Flower Town made a lot of money selling seafood, List saved up a full 20 sets of knight equipment. Among them, there is a fine steel armor that wraps people from head to toe. After wearing it, no matter if it is a poisonous bee, a mad bee, or a killer bee, they will all be killed. I just hope not too many serfs die. Marcus, who was far away on Black Horse Island, thought the same as List. After the flowers returned from Black Horse Island, he immediately reported to the Lord, "Sir, unfortunately, there is a killer beehive on Black Horse Island. A total of 16 serfs died under the stings of the bees. I came back this time with a few sets of full body armor and completely obliterate the bees." He brought back the corpses of several poisonous bees. Each poisonous bee is the size of a thumb, and there is a larger queen bee guard. Even as an elite Earth Knight, Marcus did not dare to approach the hive easily. He could only retreat and seek the protection of the knight's full body armor. "I will go with you to Black Horse Island and see what a killer bee looks like," List said in a deep voice. He not only wanted to find the sprite worm, but also wanted to see if the killer bees had honey. If there was honey in the beehive, it would definitely be top-grade honey. Honey was a top ingredient in the aristocratic diet, but no one could raise bees, so they could only send serfs to collect honey in the wild. Every year, a large number of serfs who collected honey were stung to death by various bees. There were few beehives in the Flower Town. Even if there were, he would not send serfs to collect them. Exchanging the lives of serfs for food, he was not that cruel. List decided to tag along. Marcus had no objections. However, he had other things to report. Although the problem with the felling of the trees this time was due to the surprise attack of the poisonous bees, it was also because the management was too loose. The serfs were lazy and went to a faraway place to defecate, which led to their deaths by the poisonous bees. "Sir, Port Town needs more management personnel." "I understand. I will arrange it as soon as possible." As a lord of action, since there was a problem, he immediately took action to solve it. After pondering for a while, he called for Griffin Haystack and Russell Steele. Griffin was an orphan and a friend of List at Knight College. Russell was a civilian and his family had moved to Flower Town. Looking at the 2 Earth Knights, List asked seriously, "Russell, Griffin, can I trust you?" Griffin replied without hesitation, "Lord Baron, I came to Flower Town to seek refuge with you, and I am ready to follow you at any time. I am also ready to follow you at any time. Russell was unwilling to fall behind. So, I am going to send you to a place to do something, and you may not return to Flower Town for a long time. Russell, you have to take your family with you. About 2 or 3 years, you will not be able to return to Flower Town. Will you still be willing? Lord Baron, what official business do you want us to perform? Griffin and I are enough. Why do you want to bring my family? It is indeed official business, but there is no danger, just a little hard work, and it needs to be kept secret. As for what official business it is, I can't tell you. List looked at the two of them. But I can assure you that there will be a reward for your efforts, a generous reward. When Griffin heard this, he said directly, Lord Baron, I am willing. Russell hesitated a little and nodded. Since Russell has decided to follow Lord Baron, I will naturally listen to Lord Baron's arrangements. List nodded. Then, from today on, you will officially be incorporated into my night squad. This was the meaning of accepting the follower. Griffin and Russell instantly woke up, knelt on one knee, and solemnly performed the night etiquette of following and pledging allegiance. I am willing to serve my lord. Get up, pack your luggage, fully communicate with your family, and gather at Flower Port tomorrow morning. Yes, Lord. The next day, the flowers braved the wind and waves and arrived at Black Horse Island in the afternoon. Russell and Griffin learned that they had been sent to work on a deserted island, and this Black Horse Island would become the Lord's fief in the future. In the future, my night squad's training will be arranged on Black Horse Island. Russell, Griffin, and Teacher Marcus will serve as the captains of the night squad and be responsible for the daily training of the night squad. The construction of the port town will also be led by him. Construction needs to be diligent, and training needs to be adhered to. List said. Yes, Lord. Knight was an existence that could fight on horseback and be an official when dismounted. Without staying too long, List took the 3 Earth Knights to the location of the poisonous bees. All 4 of them were wearing steel knight armor, riding on their mounts, and even their eyes were covered with barbed wire mesh masks. With such airtight equipment, it would be easy to kill the poisonous bees. Leaving Dosen and the horses in the distance, List and others walked to the poisonous bee's nest. My lord, it's just ahead. Marcus pointed not far ahead. Can you see the big tree? The honeycomb is on the branches of the big tree. It's huge and can be seen very clearly. I see it. Let's go and try to kill all the poisonous bees before dark. The Earth Knight's pace was very fast, and after a while, he had arrived under the tree. He didn't know why the serfs who came to defecate had to run so far. In order to be lazy, they even put their lives on the line. It was really speechless. Buzz, buzz. The poisonous bees had discovered List's group of 4. Without hesitation, they summoned their companions and began to take the initiative to attack. A poisonous bee the size of a thumb flew with great momentum, but they could not break the defense of steel. The 4 Earth Knights ran their chi, waved their swords, and killed these big poisonous bees one by one. Especially List, he was the strongest elite Earth Knight, and his chi was of the fire attribute with explosive characteristics. Every time he used his skills, the flames in the sky could burn a large number of poisonous bees. The honeycomb was very large, at least 1.5 people tall. Tens of thousands of poisonous bees flew out and fearlessly rushed to the 4 people, but the result was in vain. They could only turn into corpses under the swords and fell to the ground. My lord, I'll go up the tree and cut down the honeycomb. Griffin's do chi was of the thunder attribute. Lightning was dancing on his long sword. Although he was just an ordinary Earth Knight, his combat power was quite fierce. Using both hands and feet, he easily climbed up the branches. The poisonous bees surrounded him from the inside and outside, unable to stop his movements. He pulled out his sword and aimed at the root of the branch, chopped the whole branch, and fell to the ground together with the honeycomb. The 4 Earth Knights. They surrounded the fallen honeycomb and madly killed the poisonous bees. Chapter 283. The species of the poisonous bee was unknown, and no one cared what kind of poisonous bee it was. Qi gushed out and the limbs flew around. When the sun was about to set, the poisonous bees were almost dead. Even the honeycomb was split open, and the queen hidden inside was found and directly strangled. Only a small number of poisonous bees flew away. According to the habits of bees, they would linger here for a few days until they were sure that the hive no longer existed, and then they would completely fly away. Teacher Marcus, remember to warn all serfs that this area is not allowed to come over. Understood, sir. At this time, Russell suddenly shouted, "Sir, it's honey. There is honey in this hive. Is there really honey?" List lifted his mask and looked along the section of the hive that Russell had opened. Sure enough, he saw the golden honey, exuding a faint, tempting sweetness. He opened it deeper with his hand and found that there were white larvae in many hives. This was a pupa. It was about the thickness of an index finger and the length of a thumb, and it was plump. Seeing these white pupae, List almost drooled. He had eaten fried pupae, which tasted delicious and crispy. Moreover, pupae contains high protein, low fat, a variety of vitamins and trace elements, and is a very nutritious ingredient. Now this poisonous hive, which is half the height of a person, can take out at least 10 kilograms of pupae. There's something to eat. Russell, Griffin, you lift the pupae and carry it back. The honey and pupae inside are good things. I want them. Yes, sir. As the two spoke, they were about to carry the hive, but they could not lift the hive at all, and their faces turned red. Didn't you eat? Marcus asked speechlessly. According to the strength of the Earth Knight, although it could not be said to be infinite, it was at least several times that of an ordinary adult. It should not take so much effort to carry a poisonous hive of less than 500 kilograms. When Russell heard this, his face turned even redder. He used all his strength and madly circulated his qi, which shook the poisonous hive. Griffin, who was carrying with him, suddenly found a problem. Captain Marcus, the hive and the trunk here seem to be stuck together by something. No wonder we can't move it. Stuck together. List also walked over and checked the part where the poisonous hive was connected to the tree trunk. He found that, as Griffin had said, there was some white substance that stuck the two tightly together. He couldn't pull it apart. It should be the sap secreted by the tree. Why is it so sticky? Looking up the white substance, it happened to be the broken branch that had been cut by Russell before, leaving a lot of juice which flowed all the way here and then dried and solidified. Seems to be stickier than 502 glue. Glue? Solidification. List felt that this kind of thing was very unusual. If he used it, it should have a very wide range of uses. At this time, Marcus had already pulled out his steel sword, aimed at the part that was stuck and swung it. Dang! 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 After 3 consecutive strikes, the white substance only had a small crack. There were no signs of it splitting apart. Let's cut a few more times, Teacher Marcus. Use your qi. List signaled to Marcus not to stop and to continue cutting to test the strength of the juices. Marcus did as he was told. With his qi, a cyan light was attached to the long sword. He aimed at the white substance and slashed. Gotcha! This sword finally split the white substance, and the poisonous hive and the trunk were completely separated. What is so hard? I used all my strength to cut it off. The sap flowing down from the big tree. Teacher Marcus, Russell, Griffin, we may have found something better. List pointed to the big tree in front of him with a smile on his face. The big tree was a very common miscellaneous tree. List had studied this tree as early as the second time he landed on Black Horse Island to look for the keel. The trunk was very straight. The branches were high, not lush. There were no flowers or fruits, and it did not grow tall. When the new year came, the leaves were slightly yellow. Now the leaves were completely yellow. The initial conclusion was that this was a deciduous tree. It was ordinary and could probably be used as wood. He also planned to cut down all the miscellaneous trees near the pasture when there was enough manpower to expand the pasture farming area. Now it seemed that it was fortunate that it was not cut down. The tree that could produce such a strong glue was clearly a treasure given by nature. The sun was setting. List was not in a hurry to go back. Anyway, there was no World of Warcraft on the island, so there was no danger. Griffin, you aim at the tree trunk and cut it with your sword. Yes, sir. The sword went down and the bark cracked. About a minute later, white sap began to ooze from the cracked part. List picked up a little of the sap with a wooden stick and then stuck it to the trunk, shaking it from time to judge the speed of the sap's adhesion. After about 5 minutes of exposure to the air, the sap began to solidify. After solidification, it was almost unbreakable. The effect is very strong. Do you see its role? He asked proudly, with the intention of showing off. The sap of this tree was undoubtedly a natural adhesive, and from the degree of hardness after solidification, it was definitely comparable to the existence of rubber, equivalent to the product of the mixture of rubber and 502 glue. The importance of rubber was beyond doubt, and the usefulness of 502 glue was also very great. The advantages of both were undoubtedly a more valuable natural glue. However, Marcus and the other two did not realize this quickly, so they seemed a little confused. Griffin even replied in a serious manner. Maybe two things can be glued together? It looks a bit troublesome, sir. When serfs cut down trees, they may also glue their axes to the tree trunk. Cut down trees? Sir, aren't you planning to cut down all the trees on the island to expand the range of the grassland? That was the previous plan, but now it has been changed. The grassland is needed, and this tree is even more needed, List said unquestionably. You may not understand what I just said, but the sap of this tree is a good thing, a very good thing. In my opinion, it is more valuable than gold. More valuable than gold? The sap can be used directly as glue to bind objects. For example, a cooper's bucket with glue. As long as two wooden boards are gently glued together, it will be a perfect bond, neither loosening nor leaking. It is wasteful to use it for a bucket, but it may be suitable for binding weapons. List calmed his excitement and continued. Of course, first of all, it is necessary to determine its nature, durability, fire or water resistance, how to collect and store it, and so on. Having said that, he suddenly remembered that the smoke mission had been completed, and his sprite worm should have arrived. While letting Marcus and the other two study the nature of the natural glue, he silently summoned the smoke mission. However, he found that the mission content had not changed, and the mission to eliminate the poison beehive had not yet been completed. It seems that the mission can only be completed after all the poison bees fly away and the danger is completely removed. However, this tree and the mission, looking at the tree trunk and thinking about the mission, he felt that the two seemed to be related. Could it be that my 10th sprite worm is related to this tree? Chapter 284. A flash of magic light, pale yellow, seemed to be the magic of the earth attribute, just at the crown of the big tree. The tree was not tall, and List could see the crown clearly. The magic came from the top of the tree, where a large circle grew. There was no doubt that there was a sprite worm inside. In other words, this tree was a worm stalk. Realizing this, List suddenly felt distressed. Russell cut off a thick branch, and Griffin slashed the trunk with a sword. They were simply going against their own sprite worm. Teacher Marcus, Russell, Griffin, this tree is a worm stalk. He touched the rough bark. My sprite worm is being bred, and I feel its existence. You must protect it, and when it is born, I will come to contract again. Is there really a sprite worm? Russell clicked his tongue. Marcus was not surprised. He knew that List's eyes were like torches. Sir, please rest assured that I will arrange for people to patrol the tree at any time. Once the sprite worm is born, I will inform you immediately. Griffin said excitedly. Russell, you just cut off the branch of the worm stalk, and I cut a hole in the worm stalk. Sir is really the son of glory, the knight of glory. Our flower town has another sprite worm. It was not known whether he was excited for the sprite worm or for cutting the worm stalk. No matter what, the three people, who were a little confused about the natural glue, quickly paid attention to it because of the gestation of the sprite worm. For them, a sprite worm that could breed a sprite worm was a valuable plant. In their minds, the sprite worm was a symbol of nobility and an embellishment of power. List looked at the worm-stalk tree in front of him and was in a good mood. Although 16 serfs died because of the poisonous hive, it is sad. But there are gains and losses, and we have new crops and sprite worms. I now give this tree the name rubber tree. This rubber tree is not the same as the rubber tree on Earth, it just borrows the name. The sprite worm that was about to be bred became the rubber tree sprite worm. It was dark. He collected some rubber samples, carried the poisonous hive, and picked up some of the bodies of the poisonous bees, and brought them back together. After returning to Port Town, he immediately found wooden planks to make a box and put the poisonous honeycomb into the box. Teacher Marcus, the venom sacs of the wasps can be collected and refined. Perhaps we can obtain a good poison. Speaking of poisons, the Flower Town's fast-growing poisonous thorns were truly poisonous. The thorns on the thorns could pierce the skin, forming ulcers and leaving scars, but they couldn't kill. However, after refining and tempering the poison into a weapon, ordinary wild beasts would at most twitch a few times, even if they didn't die upon contact. Even against World of Warcraft with mana, it could deal heavy damage and weaken World of Warcraft for a short period of time. Moreover, World of Warcraft's regeneration would decrease for a long period of time. It had the same effect on the knight. Using poison was not an honorable act. It went against the noble qualities of a knight who charged head-on. However, it was only a poison that had a weakening effect, so it was fine to use it. In a war, one had to rely on one's own means, and one couldn't rely on hot-bloodedness. The loser was the bandit, the victor was the king. Only the victor was qualified to show his noble character. The loser would either die, go bankrupt, or become a serf. In any case, there was nothing noble about it. Marcus understood this truth and immediately nodded, saying, I will take people to pick up the corpses of all the wasps and dig out their venom sacs to refine the poison. Very well. Early the next morning, List returned to the Flower Town by ship, leaving Marcus and the others to continue presiding over the port town's construction. The first thing he did after returning to the castle was to order the servants to clean up the poisonous honeycomb. Mrs. Abby, take people to pick out all the pupae from the poisonous honeycomb, and then scrape out the honey. First, find small animals to test if there is any poison. If there is none, then add it to my recipe. Oh heavens, what a big hornet's nest. My lord, just wait to enjoy the delicious pupae. When I was a child, I often dug out hornets' nests to find those cute and delicious pupae to cook. And this honey, look, it's golden and tempting. Mrs. Abby looked left and right around the huge poisonous honeycomb, feeling very excited. Since coming to the Flower Town's castle, under List's intentional or unintentional pointers, she had become a well-known top chef. Everyone said, Mrs. Abby is clever and skillful. Mrs. Abby's dishes are amazing. Mrs. Abby's mind is full of food, which made her intoxicated. She had fallen into the business of constantly developing new dishes, and it was getting out of hand. For this reason, the castle not only recruited a new serf chef as her assistant, but also recruited 2 new kitchen maids. One was the chef Yulia, a serf bought from the Eagle Kingdom and had no surnames. The other 2 kitchen maids, Ollie and Kelsey, were also serfs bought from the Eagle Kingdom and had no surnames. Unlike the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, many serfs in the Eagle Kingdom did not have surnames. They had farmed for generations and had little mobility, so they basically did not need surnames. For example, the sisters Paris and Maggie had no surnames. Berdang and Hunt Era, who assisted Frank distillers in brewing, also had no surnames. In the history of the founding of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, a large number of serfs were purchased. In order to facilitate the census and strict control of serfs, all serfs were forced to add surnames. Noble words were not allowed to be used, which directly resulted in the surnames of civilians being a mess of lowly words. Before becoming an aristocrat, the surname of List's ancestors was the lowly word, tile. After the rise of the tulip sprite, the surname was changed to the noble word, tulip. While Mrs. Abby was busy stirring up the poisonous honeycomb, List began to train the 8 little blizzard beasts. According to his instructions, a new nameplate had been hung around the neck of each blizzard beast. Storm, Flame, come. Woof, woof. The temptation of jerky is the fastest way to enhance feelings. The fat blizzard beasts had no resistance to jerky and quickly rushed to List, licking his hands and the jerky. The storm had a green nameplate around its neck, and the flame had a red nameplate around its neck. According to the methods summarized by Dosen, the two little blizzard beasts were trained. He continued to go to the other three kennels. The one with a yellow nameplate is a rock, the one with a dark blue nameplate is a wave, the one with a purple nameplate is a thunder, the one with a white nameplate is a light, the one with a light blue nameplate is an ice and snow, and the one with a black nameplate is a shadow. The names of the 8 blizzard beasts correspond to the 8 magic attributes of wind, fire, earth, water, thunder, ice, and darkness. There is not much meaning and it does not match their physical characteristics, it is just to distinguish them. After a lap of training, an hour and a half had passed. List took the milk tea handed by the housekeeper and drank it. The workload is too much, and the work of training dogs is a waste of energy and time. He has a hunch that during the growth of the blizzard beasts, he may not have the leisure time to write Dragon Wars in the wild. It seems that it is really going to become a series of history books in my lifetime. Although there are no more updates, Old Bai is still as explosive as ever. I hope that everyone will have a good time and vote for Old Bai. Chapter 285. After training the dog. It was completely dark, and the castle was already preparing dinner dishes. List went upstairs to talk to the siren Achi, which has become his regular habit. Chatting with the innocent Achi is a kind of relaxation for the soul. List, look, I copied Frito's fireball, and I can also rub water arrows with the back of my hand. The siren Achi said happily. A water arrow condensed on the back of her hand, and with a gentle push, the water arrow flew out of the window like a sharp arrow. Learning magic was like getting a new toy for her, and she had a lot of fun playing with it. Look, not only can I rub water arrows with the back of my right hand, but I can also rub water arrows with the back of my left hand. My next step is to rub water arrows with my knees. What do you think of this idea? Apart from being surprised, List didn't know how to express it. Magicians can rub fireballs with all parts of their body, which is not difficult. The magic apprentice Fredo Truth rubs fireballs with the back of his hand, which is technically difficult. After all, magic apprentices can't be compared with magicians, and they are too weak in terms of mental control. The siren Achi can rub water arrows with the back of her hands in a few days. This control is amazing. Achi, how did you think of rubbing water arrows with your knees? The predecessors who wrote the magic books said that the most important thing for a magician is imagination and creativity. Achi found that no one casts spells with their knees. If Achi succeeds, she can also write a book. Well, it will be called Achi Royd's Truth's Water Arrow, Yes, Achi is already qualified to publish a book. It seems that you have a thorough understanding of water arrows. I have to find more books on water magic for you as soon as possible. The inheritance of a magician is relatively hidden. In addition to simple basic magic, there will be special magic books to discuss new ways of casting spells with each other. There is no book inheritance of advanced magic at all. Just like a Knight's Do Chi secret skill and a Sky Knight's cultivation secret book, both were hard to find even with money. The Tulip family has been working hard for many years, but they don't even have a Chi skill book. If it weren't for the guidance of the Smoke Mission, List wouldn't have gotten the magic eye at all. Looks like I have to have a good chat with Elksun. In List's view, Elksun is a magician who attaches great importance to enjoyment, and the possibility of getting a magic inheritance from him is relatively high, as long as he is willing to spend money. For the sake of a cheese path as a water magic shooter, List gritted his teeth and was willing to bear the costs. After all, a cheese formidable strength meant that the safety of the voyage would be greater. Thinking about it, with a water mage accompanying them, they wouldn't have to be afraid of encountering any sea monsters. Even if Achi didn't have the talent to become a magic shooter, she would still be a powerful great mage. Hearing List's words, Achi nodded happily. Thank you, List. Achi, why don't you call me Big Brother? Within 3 seconds, List decided to tie up the future water magic shooter with kinship. Achi tilted her head and looked like she was thinking seriously. But Achi is already 41 years old. List, you're only 17. You're a siren and I'm a human. Age can't be calculated like that. I'm already an adult, and you're still an underage siren. Of course, you have to call me Big Brother. Oh, okay, Big Brother. Achi is very good. Come, Big Brother will give you a black pearl. You can use it to study the magic runes and magic arrays recorded in the magic books. List took out a fist-sized black pearl and handed it to the siren Achi. From the giant clamshell, a total of 16 black pearls were harvested. A black pearl the size of a washbasin was still lying quietly in the gem space, waiting for the right time to be made into a calm pearl. 2 basketball-sized black pearls, one had been made into a calm pearl, and the other was about to be made into a calm pearl. 3 bowl-sized black pearls were not used. 10 fist-sized black pearls, 2 were sold to Levis, 1 was given to Marquis Merlin, 1 was paid to Glanny Truth, and 1 was given to Achi. There were 5 left. Holding the black pearls, Achi smiled brightly. Wow, what a beautiful black pearl. I can feel a lot of water attribute magic elements. Holding hands like a gentle baby, it's like a natural magic array. Thank you, Big Brother. I will study the black pearls and learn magic runes and magic arrays. Study hard. I still have a few black pearls. When the time comes, you can help me make magic equipment. Well, Achi will work hard. The siren clenched her small fists and pretended to be excited. Compared with the cautious she was when they first met, she was now lively and lovely. He couldn't help but reach out and rub her beautiful blue hair. He really hoped that Achi could learn as soon as possible and then ask Achi to help him make the calm pearl. After all, he asked Glanny Truth to make the calm pearl, and the cost of all kinds of materials was sky-high. The last sea-calming divine pearl had cost him a fist-sized black pearl. He poked Ella, who was still in the shell. List left the room. The castle's dinner party had begun. In the snow-covered flower town, there were no lights at night, so the work would end earlier. Only the brewery was still working all night. Lord Baron, I heard that Russell and Griffin have pledged allegiance to you and arranged to carry out tasks? Randy Kettle suddenly asked before the banquet began. Yes. Randy hopes to follow my lord. I accept your following. List was not surprised by Randy's request and said directly. Then there was the etiquette of the knight's allegiance. After acceptance, the relationship between the follower and the lord was officially established. This meant that Randy's fate was in the hands of List, and List would bring him more glory. With Randy taking the lead, Rick Footprint, Nemo, and others also announced to follow List. Among the officials of Flower Town, Isaiah, who did not follow List, also took the opportunity to ask to follow. The Flower Town in front of them was no longer a remote rural town, and the List in front of them was no longer the timid second son of the Count. Flower Town was bound to rise with List. Everyone knew that if they did not follow him now, there would be more and more talents in the future. If they followed him again, there would be no advantage. After all, the followers of the elders were certainly more valued by the Lord than the new followers. Seeing the young people performing the knight's following etiquette, Zambrata, who was not young, hesitated. He came to Flower Town to see List's potential and hoped to use List's rise to regain the glory of the aristocracy. But such a hasty following was not what he wanted. As a former Lord Knight, he had his moments of glory and remembered the difference between himself and civilians. Even if he was deprived of his title and demoted to a civilian, he still retained his pride, coupled with his talent of being knowledgeable, self-righteous, and unwilling to easily lower his status. However, at this moment, there was no room for him to continue to be aloof. If he did not follow him today, he would be remembered by List. Since I have to follow him sooner or later, I should be straightforward. List will restore the glory of the Count and become a new great aristocrat. I can't lose this opportunity. Chapter 286. This chapter is The Legend of the Wasteland Ranger Apocalypse. All the town officials are loyal, and there are no outsiders in Flower Town. Of course, There doesn't seem to be much change except that the people are more united. Whether now or before, as the Count's son, List's authority has not been shaken. The atmosphere of the dinner was cheerful. As a lord, it was inevitable that he drank a few more glasses of wine, which was the specialty flower wine of Flower Town. He felt slightly drunk. At the end of the dinner, he left Elkson behind. "Mr. Elkson, please wait a moment." "Lord Baron, what can I do for you?" "If I remember correctly, you are good at earth and water magic." "Yes, you have a good memory." "Then, I would like to buy some knowledge of water magic from you." Seeing Elkson frowning in embarrassment, List added, "It is a bit rude to ask a magician to buy magic, but please believe me, I am more curious about magic, and I will pay enough symmetrical gold coins." Elkson thought for a moment. He looked around again to make sure that there were no idlers nearby, and hesitantly said, "Lord Baron, you know that I am not a lofty, paranoid magician, and my love of gold coins is far greater than my pursuit of truth. I am willing to help you purchase magic books and produce potions, but selling magic will completely ruin my reputation. From me, there will be no transactions about buying or selling magic, and you don't have to worry about the sudden emergence of an unknown magician. I myself will not learn magic, and I am well aware of the dangers of a knight learning magic. In that case, I am willing to sell magic. The price is reasonable, and I need all the water magic you have mastered. Don't you need the other magic?" Since selling one type of magic is selling, Elkson certainly hopes to sell more. "I am good at earth and water magic. I also dabble in wind, fire, and ice magic. At present, I have mastered 16 types of magic. If the Baron buys all of them, I can sell them at a lower price." Originally, List only intended to buy water magic. But listening to him, it feels good to buy them all in case they can be used in the future. Confirm the price of the spells first. If it's suitable, I can buy all of them. If it's too expensive, I'm only willing to buy water spells. Although I'm a lord, I have a large family and a large business. I don't have much extra money to spend. You should know that. List began to bargain. He was not ready to let Elkson charge a sky-high price. There was more than one mage on Coral Island. There are 4 types of magic that apprentices can learn: water arrow, flying rock, fireball, and wind blade. Lord Baron can learn them from the magic books. Elkson said, "I mainly master the magic of the magician stage. The water element has water arrows, water will wall, water bomb, water whirlpool. The earth element has rock thorns, earth wall, rolling stone, rock cannon, earth platform. The fire element has big fireball, firewall, fire snake. The wind element has light body technique, multiple wind blades, ice blade, and the great magician stage magic, earth rock grenade." "What's the price?" "At the magician stage, one magic costs 2 gold coins, and the great magician rock grenade costs 20 gold coins. The total is..." He counted twice on his fingers. "A total of 50 gold coins. This price is absolutely cheap. Even if I want to exchange magic from a fellow magician, the cost will not be lower than this." To be honest, the price was not too expensive. But taking out 50 gold coins at once, List was still a little distressed. He didn't have much liquidity. After thinking about it, he said, "Keep the rock grenade for the time being. 30 gold coins for your 15 magics. But I can promise that as long as you can get more magic, I can continue to buy them at today's price. You should believe in my development potential. It's not difficult to buy magic." It was a pity that he didn't sell the rock grenade for 20 gold coins, but Elkson still nodded. "Of course, Lord Baron, your future is as broad as the sea. Then I will go back and write the magic casting plan. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly." Taking out 30 gold coins, List handed it directly to the other party. "Happy cooperation, Mr. Elkson." He was not afraid that the other party would run away with the money. This was Coral Island. "Happy cooperation, Lord Baron." With the motivation of the gold coins, Elkson sent the 4 written water magic casting plans to the castle the next day and continued to write the rest of the magic. List handed it directly to the siren. "Achi, I found for new magic for you. This is magic that can only be mastered by the magician stage. I don't know if you can learn it immediately. If you can't master it, then meditate more and exercise your mental strength. Well, thank you, brother. Achi will study hard and strive to become a siren magician. Hee hee. By the way, you should go to the beach today to replenish your water. Don't be busy reading. Let's go to the beach for 2 hours. Well, Achi really needs to change the seawater in the shell. The seawater is not fresh. Achi reached out and stirred the seawater in her shell. The seawater still looked crystal clear. He didn't know how the siren could tell whether it was fresh or not. Seaside. Snowflakes were flying, and winter was still not over. It would not stop snowing until mid-February. This strange world has a very different climate and hydrology from the Earth. For example, Liszt recently discovered a very important message, that is, the length of day and night in winter in Flower Town is equal. There will be no long days and short nights, and there will be no short days and long nights. This supports his previous judgment. If this world is a planet, then there is no inclination of self-rotation. He also looked up the description of some night novels. It seems that winter and summer are the same throughout the continent. As for the temperature difference, the countries in the south of the continent often do not have snowy weather in night novels. There is even a night novel that describes the southernmost part of the continent. There is a country there, known as the Country of Fire, where the weather is hot all year round. Does this mean that the southernmost part of the continent is already very close to the planet's equator? That is to say, the continent I am on is just a continent in the northern hemisphere of the planet, not the whole world. The siren Achi took a bath at the beach and laughed like a silver bell from time to time. Ella flew on the shore, looking at Achi and shouting from time to time, "Wow!" Dosen was lying in the snow, the storm and flames crawling around him. He didn't know if he knew that these 2 puppies were his children. Anyway, he tolerated them climbing and biting him. Liszt continued to fantasize about astronomy and geography. Chapter 287. The units of measurement in this world were not the same as those on Earth. As a transmigrator, he did not bring any items that could be used as a comparison to determine whether this was the world of giants or the world of ants. He could only infer the breadth of this world according to the proportions of his body. According to his research, his height had grown to about 187 meters, and he was the tallest person in the tulip family, assuming that he was the same size as himself on Earth. The Coral Island was equivalent to the area of a prefecture-level city in China, with an average of 10,000 square kilometers. The Red Crab Island was equivalent to the area of a small and medium-sized province, with an average of 100,000 square kilometers. Then the Grand Duchy of Sapphire had more than 10 islands the size of the Red Crab Island, as well as the even larger Blue Dragon Island. The area of all the islands added up to about 2 million square kilometers, which was about 1/5 the size of China. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire was just a remote island state in a corner of the continent, and its area might be smaller than other duchies and grand duchies. Its suzerain, the Steel Ridge Kingdom, had 7 vassal states, which added up to more than China, and the area of the Steel Ridge Kingdom itself was twice the size of all the vassal states added up. In other words, the area of the Steel Ridge Kingdom and its vassal states added up was equivalent to the size of the Asian continent, 45 million square kilometers. The Eagle Kingdom, the enemy of the Steel Ridge Kingdom, had a slightly smaller area and 1 less vassal state, with a total area of about 30 million square kilometers. The Blast Furnace Kingdom, the neighbor of the Steel Ridge Kingdom, had a larger area and more vassal states, with a total area of about 60 million square kilometers. The total area of these 3 kingdoms added up, plus some offshore deserted islands, could exceed the total land area of the Earth, 149 million square kilometers. But these 3 kingdoms were only located in the northeast corner of the continent. The area of the entire continent was probably 20 times the size of the 3 kingdoms. After all, the area of any one of the empires on the continent was larger than several kingdoms added up. On this continent, Liszt clearly knew that there were 3 empires: the Unsetting Radiance Empire, the Blue Dragon Empire, and the Noble Frost Empire. The surface area of the Earth seemed to be 500 million square kilometers, and the area of this continent could reach 3 billion square kilometers, which was equivalent to the surface area of 6 Earths added up. It sounded inconceivable. But the fact was that the continent was so large that if the Sapphire Duchy, located in the northeast corner of the continent, wanted to know the news of the countries on the other side of the continent, they would not rely on rumors, but on legends. Legends said that the Emperor of the Unsetting Radiance Empire had been on the throne for 200 years, and legends said that the Unsetting Radiance Empire had a howling valley where storms blew all year, a continent of 3 billion square kilometers. List took a long time to accept this fact. However, according to the data he had collected recently, such as the change of seasons and the temperature of the continent, there were even more unbelievable facts waiting to be verified. If I haven't forgotten all the geography I learned in my first year of high school, the information I have now shows that this continent is just a small piece of land in the northern hemisphere. It doesn't even cross the equator or approach the North Pole. After crossing the equator, the temperature of the continent would gradually decrease, but the southernmost part of the continent was the hottest country, which meant that it had not crossed the equator. When they were close to the North Pole, the sun should be hovering around the horizon. However, the sun was slightly slanted above their heads, indicating that they were still far away from the North Pole. Even the position of the continent is probably only between the tropical and temperate zones. It hasn't even entered the cold zone. After all, the sun is always above our heads, and it's not very inclined. He felt. According to the geographical location of Earth, it was roughly equivalent to Southeast Asia. So, if I live on a ball, how big is the ball? With his poor imagination, he couldn't solve the difficult equation of knowing the surface area of the ball and finding its volume. So he couldn't compare it with Earth. Are there other continents besides this continent? According to the legend of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, beyond the Aquamarine Sea was the Devil's Sea, where devils walked. Even the Dragon Knight couldn't cross the Devil's Sea. It seemed that apart from the continent, the rest of the world was an endless sea. No one knew what was on the other side of the sea, and no one was curious. The vast and boundless continent was enough to attract the attention of all the nobles. Liszt still remembered that when he was sighing about the endless wealth of the sea, Marcus didn't think much of it and only wanted to go to the continent to build a career. Now it seemed that the development of the sea was extremely difficult. Not to mention crossing the Devil's Sea, even sailing inside the Aquamarine Sea was dangerous at all times. Ghost ship, Tulumita. He suddenly remembered. Right, I almost forgot the book, Philip's Son's Descendant's Diary. The descendant of the son's child, who had the same bloodline as the old leathersmith, should have come from another continent and was exiled here, so there must be a new continent with a new human civilization. The drifting bottle that stored 36 D-ghosts and was only used for communication had a high level of craftsmanship and magical use, showing that it was a highly developed magic society. Thinking, he took out the drifting bottle from the gem space. It had a special metal texture and exquisite engraved patterns. He had admired it countless times. There were also countless speculations, but in the end nothing was found. Maybe one day the Smoke Mission will issue another mission related to the Sun's Child. At that time I can make use of this drifting bottle. By the way, I have collected many bottles of the old leathersmith's blood in the past 6 months, enough to open the drifting bottle hundreds of times. When he had free time, he would ask the old leathersmith for some blood. Then he would ask Jesse to give the old leathersmith a lot of tonics, fearing that the old leathersmith would die from excessive blood loss. Perhaps it was the health benefits of regular bloodletting, or perhaps it was the effect of the tonics, but the old leathersmith lived younger and younger. Liszt even heard the butler Carter say that the old leathersmith had discussed with Jesse whether he should find a wife or not. Perhaps he could have a son if he worked hard. In this regard, Liszt did not interfere. He hoped that the old leathersmith could find a wife, preferably with offspring, so that he could collect more blood of the son's descendants. He repeatedly opened the drifting bottle. After playing with it for a moment, he put it back into the drifting bottle. Liszt took out a piece of rubber and studied it. The rubber of the rubber tree. He was ready to carefully explore and figure out all its characteristics. First was its hardness. The hardness of the solidified rubber was equivalent to the marble used to build a castle. Second was its fire resistance. Flames had no effect on it, and it was completely fire-resistant like stone. It was water-resistant and would not change when immersed in water. It also did not react chemically with all the liquids that List could find. It was extremely sticky, but because it had already solidified when it was brought back, it could only be judged that when it was glued to wood, it was almost integrated with the wood. This weight was very light, similar to plastic. Chapter 288. The new rubber still needs a lot of data analysis, and a way to collect and preserve the rubber needs to be found. Although he is a man of action, he is not impatient. On the contrary, he pays great attention to personal enjoyment. After satisfying his personal enjoyment, he will consider working hard. Master, your retainer knight Philip Wool has returned from Tulip Castle and brought back news that Miss Lavera is dissatisfied with your gift of flower soap as a birthday gift. Butler Carter reported solemnly. Flower soap as a gift has become List standard. He smiled slightly. I am reminding her that personal hygiene is important. Flower soap is not cheap. She can wash it and throw it away. The soap workshop in Flowertown has gradually expanded. After completely defeating Baron Henderson's soap business, it has successfully forced the other party to change to soap powder supply. In other words, flower soap has unified the Coral Island market. Under the leadership of the two businessmen, Sherlock and Harpagon, they have cooperated with Tulip Castle and Beer Castle to sell to the outer islands. Every day, the market is expanding. The exquisite flower soap can easily beat the old-fashioned soap, so the revenue is increasing. Even in winter, when baths are not frequent, it can still make a net profit of 5 gold coins a day. At a time when the seafood business is completely depressed and the flower wine has not been on the market, the castle depends entirely on the revenue from the flower soap. As for the peanut processing workshop, there is little revenue from the town's tax revenue. To List's considerable surprise, in this cold winter, the 2 public bathrooms can bring in dozens of silver coins every day. The foreign businessmen, as well as the nobles of North Valley City, would rather take a carriage and come to Flowertown to take a hot bath. Some people will rest in Flowertown. Because there are too many people resting, the commercial district is deliberately divided into 2 two-story wooden houses in the name of the castle industry. One is a hotel, the other is a restaurant, and there are plans to open a pub. The town is becoming more and more popular, and the civilian business is booming. Raynal of the bakery can sell all kinds of bread every day. The old leathersmith of the leathersmith shop has recruited 4 apprentices to help and pass on his craft. The grocery store is even busier, and Harriet's family, including Maggie, have to be busy selling. There were also those commoners who sold eggs, vegetables, and wild fruits. They could always sell out their baskets. There were more and more caravans coming to Flowertown to do business. The more than 2,000 serfs in the territory had bulged their pockets and their desire to consume was growing. Even the North Valley City's burlesque troupe often came to the Flowertown to perform and received a lot of tips. At least, when List came to watch, he would throw a few silver coins at them every time. He was purely spending money to hire a burlesque troupe to enrich the life of the townspeople. He even ordered for a few oversized snowmen to be built in the town square. The huge snowman was as tall as a 3-story wooden house and could be seen clearly from the castle. The children in the town loved to circle around the snowman. The snowman had a name, Snowbow. "What are you doing, Paris?" When List walked out of the castle, he saw that the mercenary was also making a snowman. It seemed that she wanted to replicate the snowman in the town square. The castle is too monotonous. There should be a snow treasure. Have you finished today's snake text lesson? Today is Sunday. You made a rule that I can have a day off every Sunday. Paris was seriously making a snowman, even though it was ugly. Since you have nothing to do, come and fight with me. Can we not fight? I am not your opponent at all if I don't transform. Lord Baron, there is no point in you fighting with me. You can't say that. I am now going to use an ordinary sword and no longer restrain your light and shadow entanglement. I will seriously rely on my basic strength to hone my fighting power. Paris stood up. As you wish. On the open snow, List held a steel sword and did not release the magic eyes. He fought Paris seriously. The effect of the light and shadow entanglement was obvious. Without the buff of the red blood sword, he was in a sorry state. However, the benefits of taking potions for a long time were reflected. Even if he left the red blood sword, he still had enough chi to make mistakes. Dang! The steel sword collided with Paris's big sword and the friction created sparks. The strength given to Paris by the Black Dragon Gang was resolved by List with his chi. This collision was a draw. After several subsequent collisions, no one had the upper hand and who was in a disadvantageous position. List, who did not use chi and gem weapons, was almost at the same level as Paris, who did not transform. List was so tired that he was gasping for breath. He was not a genius to be able to quickly break through and defeat an opponent of the same level in a battle. Paris, on the opposite side, was also panting. Her full chest was moving up and down, and her hands holding the big sword began to tremble. Again. Dang! The steel sword and the big sword collided again. This time, the steel sword in List's hand suddenly made a slight cracking sound, and the next moment, half of the sword had already spun out. When Paris saw this, she raised her eyebrows and unceremoniously launched an attack. She wanted to take the opportunity to defeat List in one fell swoop. My sword is not as strong as Paris's big sword. This is bad. List was anxious. He did not want to lose to Paris. In the recent actual combat training, he was the one who abused Paris, and he has long been accustomed to victory. However, Paris, who has been abused for a long time, naturally knows that this is a rare opportunity, and the hope of defeating List is at this moment. Ha! The big sword was like a tiger, and List, who was holding the half-broken sword, was forced to retreat again and again. In the face of such a dangerous situation, List slowly calmed down, and his mind was clear and crazy, thinking about how to deal with it. Suddenly, he thought of a way. When Paris raised her big sword again and was ready to attack, he did not retreat but instead, like a vigorous cheetah, rushed directly to Paris, who was in front of him. His hands directly wrapped around the opponent's waist and fiercely threw her. In a night battle, there is almost no such close combat scene. Paris did not react in time, and List took the initiative on the spot and completed the close combat. When she wanted to counterattack, she had already fallen to the ground together with List. Due to inertia, the two of them rolled like a gourd. In order to prevent Paris from counterattacking, List wrapped his hands very tightly, forcing Paris to be unable to twist her body, and the big sword was also thrown away. After 5 or 6 rounds, it stopped rolling. The battle immediately came to a stalemate. List wrapped his hands around Paris, unable to attack again, Paris also unable to counterattack. No one can do anything to the other. However, when List felt his hands suddenly become soft, he suddenly found that he was pressed down by Paris. Her full chest happened to be pressed against his head, and a large area of the round, elastic area stuck to his face and continued to press down, almost suffocating him. "You can let go of me." Paris's voice was strangely soft. But List did not feel embarrassed at all. Still maintaining his original position, "How about a draw?" "Up to you." "Okay." Only then did he let go. Paris forced herself to use her arms and rolled off him. Chapter 289. After brushing off the snow on his body, List had regained his usual elegance. Although there was still some lingering charm of suffocation on his face, his eyes were exceptionally clear. A hearty battle was enough to dissipate the restlessness that originated from the physiology. He picked up the great sword that Paris had dropped on the ground and found that the blade was not damaged at all after so many collisions. "This great sword of yours is forged with exquisite craftsmanship. We have fought more than a dozen times and it has never been damaged. It should not be made of ordinary steel." After receiving the great sword, Paris's beautiful face still had a trace of redness, and her slightly panting voice exuded a languid air unique to women. Her eyes flickered brightly. "This great sword came from the collection of a viscount of the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf. I don't know the level of craftsmanship, but I found it pleasing to the eye, so I took it. After all, she was a female thief, and it was natural for her to say that she had stolen something." "Yeah." List noticed the sweat on her face and the thin shirt under the leather armor. He said, "The battle is over. Go back and take a bath and change your clothes. It's cold. Don't freeze. I also have to go back and change my clothes. Let's go." Just as he turned around, he heard Paris shout, "Sir Baron, what's wrong?" List looked back at her. Paris sheathed the greatsword on her back, revealed a bright smile, and said in a sweet voice, "Thank you for your concern. You are a good person." PFFF. List received a second good person card. Of course, these were the good person cards that truly represented a good person. He waved his hand and walked away without looking back. Paris was left standing in the same place. She bit her lip and charmingly looked at his back for a while before following him. In the castle bathroom, while soaking in the indoor hot spring, he called out the smoke mission. He found that the smoke serpentines had changed. Mission completed. Reward: a rubber tree sprite worm. The poisonous bees flew away, and the danger was declared resolved. Next, another change and a new mission was created. Quest: Dosen has been restless recently. It feels like its magic is about to rush out and wants to vent, but it doesn't know how to vent. Releasing rock thorns can't alleviate the urge. As its master, you should solve this problem for Dosen. Reward: Dosen's new spell. Oh! List raised his eyebrows. This was the second type of magic that Dosen had begun to comprehend. The previous rock spike or multiple rock spikes could only be considered a single type of magic. For example, the purple sand crocodile, who had mastered water arrow volley, would definitely be able to release a separate water arrow spell, which was a prerequisite skill. Does Dosen need my help with the second kind of magic? But I don't have much research on earth magic. The earth magic sent by Elk Sun seems to be a reference. Earth wall? Rolling stones? Earth lifting platform? Or the rock grenades I didn't buy? After the bath, he immediately took out the thick bast paper that recorded the casting plans of these earth magic spells and carefully memorized the theories. He was ready to help Dosen verify one by one to determine which one it would comprehend. If it's an earth wall, let the serfs come over and pile up a few walls with earth. If it's a rolling stone, let the serfs push the stone to roll on the ground, or directly roll a snowball. If it's an earth-lifting platform, we can also pile snow to let Dosen understand the truth. It was impossible to let Dosen understand the principles of magic casting. He could only follow its instincts and give it a little inspiration. After planning this, he immediately took action. First, it was the simplest snowball which the castle servants could do. Tom, Thomas, Jesse, Parker, Jim, and John took turns to push the snowball over and over in the meadow. List took Dosen and constantly urged Dosen to release magic. However, Dosen looked at the vast snowball scene and still only released rock thorns. After tossing back and forth for half an hour, he didn't comprehend anything, and there were no signs of new magic. The plan failed. Replace the earth-lifting platform. List immediately ordered the servants to start piling up the snow together to build a platform. The magic of earth-lifting platform was to use earth magic to complete the lifting of the ground. He didn't know if the imitation was not good enough, or if this was not the magic Dosen wanted to comprehend, but the servants were tired and sweating, and Dosen still only released rock thorns. The plan failed again. Replace the earth wall. The earth wall and the earth-lifting platform were similar in nature. It was a half rock and half earth wall formed by lifting and lowering the ground, which could block some attacks. Casting magic consumed a lot of magic, and it was much more difficult than magic like rock thorns. The serfs desperately dug several walls, but still failed to trigger Dosen. A day passed, but Dosen didn't comprehend anything. The next day, List repeated the action again, but Dosen still didn't comprehend anything. Sometimes it could be clearly felt that Dosen seemed to want to release a new magic, but after a long time it was still rock thorns. Without inspiration, there is always a foot in the door. Just as he was thinking about how to help Dosen comprehend new magic, Ella didn't know how she came out. Instead of continuing to take a bath in a cheese shell, she screamed, picked up the snow on the ground, rolled it into a small snowball, and threw it at Trembling Woods. It felt that List was too close to Dosen these 2 days, which made it very dissatisfied. So the snowball served. Dosun was hit by the small snowball and didn't respond at all. He didn't care about Ella's poor fighting power at all. It was this disdain that made Ella suddenly furious, forgetting List's ban. She raised her hand and sowed seeds, and thorns quickly sprouted between Dosun's hair. In a moment, Dosun was wrapped in a ball. List did not stop it. He had a bit of a disappointed iron, not steel mentality. He taught Dosun for 3 days, but he couldn't understand any magic at all. Stupid. So the arrogant Ella began to act violently, and the rapidly growing thorns pricked Dosun all over his body, making him scream. He thought that List would help him stop Ella, but List was indifferent. Dosun finally couldn't stand it and jumped up to chase Ella. But Ella could fly, and no matter how high he jumped, he couldn't bite Ella. Seeing that there was no way out, Dosun was so anxious that his dog eyes were almost red, and his rock thorns were stuck in a mess. List looked at the situation and felt that the lesson was enough. He was about to stop Ella from continuing. Suddenly, Dosun opened his mouth, and a magic flew out, condensed into a rock in the air, and whistled straight to Ella. Ella, who was still proud of herself, was frightened by the flying rock and fell directly from the air. The rock flew over his head and burst in midair, and the rocks splashed large snowflakes. This was obviously a new magic. Dosun's new magic had been released. When the blow missed, he rushed over and opened his mouth to bite Ella, who had fallen to the ground. "Shut up, Dosun," List hurriedly shouted. Ella was his baby. Deep in the bones of obedience, Dosun stopped in an instant, staring at Ella, who was close at hand, and growled. List rushed quickly, picked up Ella, and confirmed that Ella was not hurt. He was relieved and turned to look at Dosun, who was still growling in a low voice. Chapter 290. On the palm of his hand. Whoa! Ella cried aggrievedly, trying to win List's sympathy. But List's eyes were all on Dosun. He asked his servant to come and help tear off the thorns on Dosun. He was quite excited. Just now, in a rather dangerous situation, Dosun successfully released a new kind of magic. He condensed a flying and exploding rock in the air. Is this the rock grenade owned by Elksun that can only be mastered by a great magician? Elksun had the rock grenade casting scheme, but he didn't know how to cast it himself. He needed the mental control of a great magician to release this level of magic. Dosun's new magic was probably this kind of relatively advanced magic. Woof! Dosun barked at List. He was probably accusing List of covering up the evil thorn sprite, Ella. But List could not punish Ella. He just ordered Ella to go back to the worm room immediately and not to come out. Then he took out a few pieces of jerky and threw them to Dosun, comforting him and rewarding him for learning new magic. When Dosun finished eating the jerky, he immediately ordered, "Dosun, release the magic." Dosun opened his mouth. In the distance, a rock thorn broke through the ground. "Not this, it's the new magic you just learned. Come on, release it here." List pointed to the air. Dosun froze for a while before opening his mouth and spitting out magic. Hula, a rock about the size of a wash basin, quickly condensed and exploded. He had ordered Elksun to come. "Mr. Elksun, what kind of earth magic do you think Dosun's new magic is?" Elksun said in surprise. "This is a rock grenade, a very powerful earth magic. Dosun has completed the intermediate world of Warcraft bloodline transformation. He has successfully mastered the rock grenade that only a great magician can learn. But his rock grenade is a bit weak. I have seen a great magician cast a spell once, and the condensed rock is the size of a water tank. It was weak because Dosun wasn't used to it yet. Once mastered, the rock grenade would be greatly improved. Now, Dosun had finally mastered an aerial attack method. When facing the Sky Knight, it would no longer be passive and could take the initiative to attack. After thinking about it, if the Sky Knight jumped up and attacked, Dosun would immediately open fire. A few rock grenades would definitely be able to repel the Sky Knight's attack. Well done, Dosun. From today onwards, we have a new training course. Listen to my instructions, Dosun, rock grenade. Dosun was dumbfounded. It took him a long time to spit out a rock grenade. It hadn't formed a conditioned response to the rock grenade yet, so it needed time. But in any case, Dosen now has the combat power of intermediate World of Warcraft, which is comparable to the Sky Knight. Riding on Dosen, List was in high spirits and his heart was full of pride. Now that I am on Coral Island, no one should have any objections. He even thought of it. With Dosen's combat power and the future of the 8 little blizzard beasts, he doesn't need a night squad. He can directly lead the blizzard beast army to the battlefield. Of course, the territory is inseparable from the support of the night class. After all, the blizzard beasts are big eaters. If the territory does not develop, it will not be able to afford to raise them. Just eating and drinking for the 9 blizzard beasts costs hundreds of gold coins a month. And when I go to the battlefield, I also need a night squad to serve the blizzard beasts and guide them to participate in the battle. If I were to command them by myself, the scene would be very ugly. However, with this year's expedition order, I will be able to join the battle with the Count. The heart of making meritorious service has been stirred. Black Dragon Gang Paris is the personal protection, Dosen is the main output, plus a night squad to assist from the side, as well as the care of the Count and Levis. By the way, he should be able to get enough credit with the least danger. Little by little, he should be able to accumulate power before he is 20 years old. He should be able to rely on his military merits to be conferred Viscount and turn Black Horse Island into his own fief. With his own island, with the help of the Smoke Mission, with the knowledge and vision of a transmigrator, it is hard to say how brilliant the future will be, but he will definitely ride a dragon. Mission completed. Reward Dosen's new magic, rock grenade. Mission. Carpenter Carrasco is lost in thought. He helped the brewery make many novel wooden utensils, which brought him too much inspiration and made him understand that he does not like to make tables and benches every day. He is eager to create. Please give him some advice. Reward, variation of the rubber tree sprite worm. Teach Dosen new magic. The mission was completed immediately, but the newly issued mission surprised List. Carpenter Carrasco probably wants to make Luban. I will give him a few ideas later. I don't know how to make wooden oxen and Juga crossbow, but I can still learn about rocking chairs, drawers, wheelbarrows, and crooked plows, but the variation of the rubber tree sprite worm, what does it mean? Directly mutated into a sprite? List felt that it was unlikely. He had never heard of plants directly giving birth to sprites. But in addition to directly mutating sprites, what other aspects of mutation could there be? He thought for a long time but still had no clue, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Finish the mission first. Carrasco, I appreciate creative craftsmen the most. List immediately asked someone to check the information of Carpenter Carrasco, and soon got feedback. Carrasco was a serf purchased from the Eagle Kingdom and currently worked in the carpenter shop. He was not a skilled craftsman and was considered a weirdo in the carpenter shop. Other carpenters would take care of their own lives after work, but he had little spare time and spent all day staring at the wood in a daze. Sometimes he would pick up wood and randomly make some strange things. For this reason, when the fief's officials came to the carpenter shop to inspect it, they often scolded him. It seems that the era has limited his thinking and has not given him a suitable environment to let his ideas fly. List secretly thought. He quickly rushed to the carpenter shop with the retainer knight. He wanted to personally inspect Carrasco's carpentry work. In the carpenter shop, sawdust flew all over the place. After the serfs saluted, they were reprimanded by the steward to continue working. List went straight to Carrasco. What about your amateur carpentry work? Show it to me. Sir Lord. Carrasco, half nervous and half unfamiliar with the language, stammered a few serpentines. Don't be nervous, Carrasco, said List gently. In the fief, he had always presented himself as noble, gentle, and benevolent. The role of the villain was played by other officials. After feeling the kindness of the Sir Lord, Carrasco finally dispelled his nervousness and laid out his amateur carpentry work one by one. A 5-legged stool, a chair with backrests on all 4 sides, a triangular table. The only thing that looked like it was a few bowl-shaped teacups. This was not creativity at all, it was a lack of nerve in the brain. List finally understood why the inspecting officials scolded Carrasco. If not for the smoke mission, he would have also scolded him. What was with the chair with backrests on all four sides? How could people sit on it? Was it a crib? A triangular table? Was it really not afraid of stabbing people to death? But since there was a smoke mission. Chapter 291. Carrasco's serpentine was terrible, but even with a translator, there was still no way to communicate smoothly. Because his speech was always stuttering, he could not fully express what he wanted to express. People who had immersed themselves in work all their lives and had never received any education should not be expected to be able to express themselves proficiently. Even if he had a myriad of ideas, it would still be useless if he could not express them. Liszt did not have time to waste with him. Since you have so many ideas, then I am going to give you some ideas and let you realize them. Carrasco, can you do it? Sir Lord, Carrasco can do it. Very good. Do you see this drawing? Liszt took out a drawing that he had prepared, which depicted a rocking chair. This is a rocking chair. Do you understand? Carrasco took the drawing. After looking at it for a full 10 minutes, he slowly nodded. I understand, Sir Lord. Carrasco can do it. The drawing was very well drawn. It was not just a drawing, but it was explained from several aspects. He believed that as long as one was not a fool, they would be able to understand it. The rocking chair itself was a very simple piece of furniture. There were no rocking chairs in this world. During the winter, when the sun occasionally came out, Liszt could only sit on the rocking chair with a hard back. He could not enjoy the atmosphere of rocking and falling asleep. With the rocking chair, not only could he read a book while basking in the sun by the window in winter, but he could also enjoy the cool air under the apple tree in summer. After leaving the carpentry shop, he thought, a rocking chair should be able to open Carrasco's mind and let him fly. If not, he was prepared to teach Carrasco the drawers, rocking beds, crooked plows, wheelbarrows, antique shelves, and other wooden products that did not exist in this world. If he could only rely on the rocking chair to complete the task, then Liszt would still slowly invent these things. However, at that time, he would arrange for skilled carpenters to build them. It is time for the carpentry shop to be upgraded to a carpentry workshop and expand its scale. Fast-growing iron thorns will soon become timber. When the time comes, the Flower Town's wooden products will become a new specialty. After all, they are ironwood quality wooden products. Tables with drawers, cabinets, rocking chairs, cribs, and chic antique shelves suitable for aristocratic collections should all be popular. As for the crooked plow and wheelbarrow, Liszt had not decided whether he should develop them or not. These tools could already be defined as strategic items. Once invented, they would greatly promote the development of productivity. However, the technical content of these tools was relatively low, and it was very easy to plagiarize. At that time, it might not only boost the productivity of Flower Town, but also the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. He never denied his selfishness. As a noble, he had to keep the good things for himself. I should wait until I have grown stronger before I develop these strategic items one by one. At that time, I can rely on my first-mover advantage to rapidly expand my strength and achieve leaps and bounds in development. With the current size of the Flower Town, I cannot rely on these means to develop by leaps and bounds. Think clearly. Thus, he was no longer troubled. Back to the castle to check the progress of Achi's magic practice. Achi, how is it? Can you use water arrow volley now? Not yet, brother. In Achi's hand, a water arrow slowly appeared, but she was unable to condense a second water arrow. It feels like water arrow volley isn't that difficult, but Achi just can't make a second water arrow. I've tried so many times. Isn't Achi stupid? How could that be? Liszt rubbed Achi's beautiful blue hair again. He liked the feel of it. It was as soft as silk and as moist as water. Magic training is not something that can be accomplished in one go. Compared to those magicians who need several years to learn water arrow, you are already a genius. Achi immediately said with a smile. Well, Achi also thinks she is a genius. She rubbed her head against Liszt's hand. She enjoyed List's touch very much. This gave List quite the feeling of cultivating a magical girl. It was a great sense of accomplishment to slowly cultivate an underage fairy-like creature that belonged to him into a powerful magic platform. Occasionally, he would warn himself, at least 3 years, the maximum penalty is the death penalty. His eyes swept over Achi's perky chest, and he said with a smile, "Do you feel bored staying here every day?" No, Achi likes her current life. She can read books and learn magic quietly, and she no longer has to worry about being chased by Muru Mida. I thought you would like the sea very much. Well, Achi likes the sea very much, but compared to magic, I have lived in the sea for 41 years. When I learn a lot of magic and can beat Murumida, I can go out to sea with my brother and play around. Now I need to read. She raised a magic book at her hand, and there was a pilgrimage glow on her face. Magic helped her open the door to a new world. Achi will become an outstanding water magic shooter. I firmly believe in this. List got up and left. You read and learn magic quietly. Fresh fruit is on the table. Take it if you want to eat. In addition, look after Ella. I am going to punish her by not going out for 3 days. The siren nodded. Hee, Achi will help my brother look after Ella. In the corner of the shell, there was a whisper, "Wow!" Although Carrasco's ideas were a bit off track, after receiving List's guidance, he made the first rocking chair within 2 days. Because it was his first time making it, he had no experience. The rocking chair was crooked and not in line with ergonomics. The rocking chair was sent to the castle. After seeing the real thing, List almost didn't recognize it as a rocking chair. The ratio of the rocking legs on both sides was so different that sitting on it not only hurt the buttocks and the back, but also felt that the rocking chair would tilt at any time. Carrasco, sit on it and feel it. List stood up and said lightly, "Yes, my lord." Carrasco sat on it and swayed hard. List asked, "What do you feel?" "It seems that it's not as solid as an ordinary chair. It's a little hard on the buttocks. These 2 swaying legs of the chair have to be of the same standard, and the curvature has to be maintained. Can't be too big or too small. There is also a chair back that can lie down. It must be flat and not hard. Continue to improve the rocking chair, don't let me down, and strive to make a qualified rocking chair." "Yes, yes, my lord." With more contact with serfs, List would not get angry easily. Even if the serfs were stupid, he would just calmly accept the facts. He had 2 lifetimes of experience and vision, so he saw and understood problems more deeply. Serfs had not received education, their vision was narrow, and their thinking would definitely be rigid. Just like several carpenters in the Flower Town carpenter's shop, they had never thought of innovating any new furniture or tools except to work according to instructions. Carrasco's ideas were off track, but at least he still had ideas. "When you make a qualified rocking chair, you will get a reward from me. Now go and do your work seriously." List waved his hand, and the servant sent Carrasco and his rocking chair out of the castle. List took a sip of fresh dragon milk tea and summoned the smoke mission. He thought that the mission was not completed. After all, Carrasco's rocking chair was seriously unqualified, but it was clear that the smoke mission did not set high requirements. The smoke serpentines changed. Chapter 292. Dang 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 dang. Her slender and powerful fingers plucked on the piano keys. The beautiful melody of To Alice slowly rose and the notes danced at her fingertips. Under the illumination of the stove, her voluptuous body wrapped in tulle seemed to be plated with a layer of golden brilliance. Dang dang dang. The last few notes fell. Dunico Hyacinth let go of her hands and let out an imperceptible sigh. Behind her, a maid holding an evening dress asked in a low voice, "Miss, don't you want to attend the banquet tonight? Sir Richard is waiting for you to dance the first dance." "I'm only 18 years old, Lua. Do you understand? I'm only 18 years old, and I don't want to get married so early. Why is this Richard like an old man who has been thirsty for 50 years? Pestering me, pestering the Hyacinth family. Can't he wait 2 more years? Pestering me before the New Year's Day, and again after the New Year's Day. Miss, Sir Richard is deeply in love with you. Oh, what a joke. This is just a marriage between families. There is no emotional foundation. Hyacinth tore off the tulle covering her body, completely exposing her beautiful body, allowing the maid Lua to change her clothes. Moreover, he doesn't meet my aesthetic standards. The maid Lua inquired, "What kind of aristocrat do you like, miss? Elegant, indifferent, handsome, able to play beautiful piano melodies. Music can express the heart, and only those who are not so utilitarian can play a refreshing tune. Are you talking about Baron Liszt? Miss, you now play to Alice once a day. But Master doesn't seem happy. He is very angry about what happened in Tulip Castle. You should not make Master angry. He is trying to curry favor with the Pineapple family. Everyone thinks that the Taro family will fall into decline, so he can't wait to look for a new backer. But I don't want to let him get what he wants. Brother Meopal will get through this, and the Taro family will still be the rulers of Red Crab Island." Duniko Hyacinth changed into her underlined clothes and tied up her hair, restoring the grace of an aristocratic lady. Her face was full of nostalgia. "I just wanted to go to Long Taro Castle to relax, but I didn't expect to meet Liszt. His carelessness when playing the piano is something I have never seen before. Yes, Baron Liszt is a little more handsome than Sir Meopal. I spent the happiest night of my life in the Long Taro Castle, Lua. You have no idea how strong he is, and how heartless. No wonder you can't forget him and play Fur Elise every day. No, I will forget him. From the time he left the Long Taro Castle, I have forgotten about him. I just want to change a part of Die Elise. There are many flaws in this piano piece. It's like an improvisation. I guess it was improvised by Liszt. I can see that he was so careless at the ball. Then why don't you write to him and ask him?" Duniko suddenly froze for a moment. "I took the initiative once, but I don't want to take the initiative a second time. I am a thorny rose of Red Crab Island, not a dog's tail flower." She had already changed into her dress. Duniko looked at herself in the crystal mirror. She was still as beautiful as a blooming rose. She took a deep breath and put on the standard smile of an aristocratic lady. "Let's go. Rubber tree sprite worm triplets?" Seeing the reward of the smoke mission, Liszt felt that it was inconceivable. He had never heard of sprite worms having twins or triplets. As the essence of plants, sprite worms had always been alone. At least, according to the information he had, there had never been a sprite worm with twins or triplets. Even in those nonsensical night novels, there had never been an author who wrote about multiple sprite worms. The result of this mutation is really exciting. Regardless of whether there had been multiple sprite worms in the past or not, at least now the result was exciting. He originally thought that there was only one sprite worm, but in the end, there were three. It was like a buy one get two free promotion. It just so happens that rubber is becoming more and more important. With 3 sprite worms, the planting of rubber trees can be greatly increased, and the rubber output will also increase. This was a very good mutation, and Liszt was very satisfied with this result. He restrained his thoughts and began to pay attention to the new mission. Mission: a song Die Elise will make the name of the Piano King Liszt spread throughout Red Crab Island, and also cause ripples in the heart of a certain girl. You think that a night of passion is the end? Full stop. But there may be another chance. Please write a letter to Duniko Hyacinth. Reward: a melody from memory. Liszt clearly saw the contents of the smoke serpentines. Liszt's pleasant surprise was quickly replaced by absurd. What is this? Piano King Liszt? When Liszt touched the piano in Long Taro Castle, he indeed thought that his piano sound would shock the world, but he had never thought of becoming the Piano King. Moreover, after a night of spring breeze with Duniko, although he occasionally missed the moment of passion, he did not think of teasing her again. At the same time, what made him depressed was that the reward turned out to be just a melody from memory. What was the point of this? He really wanted to say that his eyes were playing tricks on him, but the smoke mission was clearly written in serpentines, engraved with content that he couldn't ignore. It was indeed to write a letter to Duniko and then get a melody, probably the melody of a pop song, or maybe the melody of a piano song. In his previous life as an IT worker, he had a period of time when he typed code and liked to listen to the 70 world-famous piano songs, always playing this song list on loop. After a while, his mood relaxed. He accepted the content of the smoke mission's reward. If it was useless, then it was useless. He would think about it in the next mission. He also accepted the mission's content. If he could do it again with Dunico, why not? He just pondered. Why did the smoke mission issue such a strange content and boring reward? The smoke mission originated from the smoke dragon. It is the power of fate that drives all this. What does fate represent? The birth of the elves in the territory, the distress of the sirens, the invasion of the invisible dragon, and Paris's infiltration. These are all things that may or may not happen. But in the end, they happened and were grasped by Liszt in the form of missions. There were also some missions that affected the fate of the residents of the territory. For example, Costo wanted to sail, Rainier wanted to make bread, Carrasco wanted to be Luban, and even Dosen wanted to release magic. Then, there were the ultra-small saltpeter mines, fire dragon bone fragments, Thorn's Ridge's World of Warcraft, and so on. Therefore, there are 3 ways to trigger the smoke mission, or rather, the trigger of fate. The first is what I already have around me, and fate guides me to get it. The second is something that may or may not happen, and fate guides me to get it or prompt it to happen. And the third is that people's thoughts and wishes can also affect fate. Thinking of this. Chapter 293. The piano was an instrument that required superb craftsmanship. No one knew when it was invented. Many people believed that the piano originated from the Moon Empire, an empire that had disappeared for thousands of years. The historical truth had long since changed beyond recognition, so much so that no matter what happened, the Moon Empire could be blamed on it. The aristocrats who boasted of their nobility could not do without music. Among the music that the aristocrats attached the most importance to was the piano. Many aristocrats would learn to play the piano from a young age. For example, the predecessor Liszt often played the piano. His sister Lavera played the piano quite well, and his cousin Miopol was a piano enthusiast. Even some minor aristocrats would scrimp and save money to buy a piano as a pastime. Many aristocratic second sons, who had no hope of inheriting the title and did not dare to go to the battlefield, would turn to the piano, painstakingly practice their piano-playing skills, and become a pianist. After becoming a pianist, they could continue to go to the upper class. Many pianists relied on their charm to attract the favor of aristocratic young ladies, which was nothing new. Famous pianists, even in the palace, would be valued. And those pianists who could compose piano music, without exception, were called masters. Wherever they went, aristocrats would rush to receive them, and young ladies would secretly throw flirtatious glances at them. Liszt enjoyed such treatment in the Long Taro Castle for his song, Die Elise. The madness of the aristocrats towards the piano directly gave birth to a group of Iron Knight who specialized in making pianos. An Iron Knight was a chi cultivator who forged magic weapons, gemstone weapons, and other equipment. They did not go to the battlefield, did not practice fighting skills, and did not charge. Instead, they concentrated on forging weapons belonging to senior blacksmiths. The Iron Knight who forged pianos was called a piano knight. Only a family that had reached the rank of a marquis could have the financial resources to train a piano knight who could make a qualified piano. Each piano was equivalent to a magic weapon. The cheapest piano would cost at least 10 gold coins. Therefore, many pianists started with second-hand old pianos. There were several pianos in Tulip Castle, but unfortunately, the Count did not give any of them to Liszt. As a result, Liszt did not discover the piano king Liszt in his heart. It's probably because the piano piece I played at will in the Long Taro Castle has released the piano king in my heart, so it triggered such a smoke mission? He had already adjusted his emotions. Since he was already here, he would take things as they came. He did not rejoice or grieve because of external factors. The most important thing was to find a way to complete the mission. How am I supposed to write to Dunico? As a friend or as a lover? Or should I just blindly write something to deal with the smoke mission? He pondered for a moment. He returned to the study, unfolded a thick piece of bast paper, picked up a quill and dipped it in ink. Dear Duniko, I wonder if you've been practicing Der Elise lately? When I returned by ship, I sorted out the score amidst the waves of the sea. The bumpy cabin and the noise of the waves always destroyed my grasp of the melody. Perhaps there was also the factor of being restless after parting. Back in Flower Town, far away from the hustle and bustle, I breathed the cold air amidst the snow. My brain finally calmed down. Although the score has already been sent to Longtaro Castle along with Steward Rainieri and then handed over to you, I still try to play the melody again. Writing until here, he could not help but pull out a thick piece of bast paper covered with musical notes from the desk. He recomposed it when he returned to Tulip Castle. After playing it many times, he finally dug out the details of Der Elise from the depths of his memory. The score he promised to send to Miopol and Duniko was written in a hurry while he was being tossed about at sea. It was not perfect. When he left Tulip Castle, he did not choose to send the more perfect Der Elise. He probably felt that it was unnecessary. After all, he did not need to rely on his identity as a pianist to add to his aristocratic temperament. As a result, the score was placed on the desk and covered in dust. Looking at the strong and powerful characters on it, he seemed to recall the wild night of that wild and hardy night. Compared with the beauty of the Siren Chi, Duniko is much inferior, but her charm is something that the innocent and pure Chi does not have. One makes you feel that blasphemy is a crime, the other makes you just want to commit a crime. Dang dang dang. There was a knock on the door. It was the butler Carter. Master, is it convenient for you? Withdrawing his thoughts, Liszt responded, Please come in. Carter came in with a cup of milk tea. This is the milk tea that Mrs. Morrison has just brewed, with a little bit of the best honey. If you like it, I will tell Mrs. Morrison to continue brewing it like this. Let me taste it first. Liszt picked up the cup and tasted it. Compared with the previous fresh milk, the milk tea with honey was undoubtedly better. The best honey was scraped from the poisonous beehive destroyed on Black Horse Island. It was 20 kilograms, non-toxic, and very mellow and sweet. It was filled with several large cups and labeled, Masters Only. There were also the pupae. After Mrs. Abbey added oil and salt seasonings, most of them were destroyed by Liszt. A small half was eaten and most of them were put into the gem space. When he had time, he would take out a few pupae and chew them. At this moment, the milk tea entered his stomach. The delicious stimulated his taste buds, and Liszt could not help but drink the rest in one breath. It's delicious, and the sweetness is just right. Mr. Carter, help me tell Mrs. Morrison to use the same amount as today's cup. Yes, master. Carter left with the cup. Liszt continued to bury his head at his desk, writing letters, his quill pen never stopping. Now that I have completed the details of To Alice, I think it should appear on the piano stand of Miss Duniko, who knows the most about music, accompanied by your slender fingers turning into beautiful notes. I think I have heard your moving piano sound, lingering in my ears, as white as the moonlight. Greetings. Yours sincerely, Liszt. Putting down the quill pen, he picked up the thick bast paper and shook it, so that the ink on it solidified faster. He then checked it twice and felt that the wording was okay. There was neither deliberate unfamiliarity nor cheeky enthusiasm. He just explained the reason for writing, but did not say goodbye. Men can do anything when they are impulsive. But when reason existed, he knew how to make a choice. He couldn't abandon Flower Town's matters and run all the way to Red Crab Island just to find Duniko and fire a shot at her. If it weren't for the absurd content of the smoke mission, he might never contact Duniko again. Passion is not love. As a noble, you have to be able to let go. I don't know what Duniko will think when she receives the letter. Liszt folded the thick bast paper in half, took out an envelope and stuffed it in. On the envelope, he wrote to Duniko Hyacinth and sender, Liszt Tulip. Then he lit the candle with a match, took out a round spoon from the square box on the table, scooped a few small cloves of rosin, and baked them on the candle flame. When the rosin softened into a liquid, He poured it on the envelope seal and smeared it evenly. Just as it was about to solidify, he took out his personal seal, a long square seal engraved with the name Lise in half serpentines. He pressed hard on the rosin, leaving an exclusive mark. After doing all this, he called for the retainer knight Philip. Send it to Tulip Castle tomorrow morning and give it to Sir Levis. Have him mail it for me. Chapter 294. This chapter is titled Reading Too Many Books. Please update it. The letter has been processed, but the smoke mission has not been updated. Obviously, it needs to be delivered to Dunico Hyacinth in order to complete the mission. Early the next morning, he heard that Philip had gone to Tulip Castle to deliver the letter. Liszt was inexplicably melancholic. He didn't know if he should follow the instructions of the smoke mission and provoke Dunico. However, Dunico was quite suitable to be a lover. She was passionate when she entered and straightforward when she parted. The melancholy was only for a moment. Soon he returned to his peaceful state of mind and let nature take its course. With his aristocratic identity, handsome appearance, and outstanding inner qualities, he was destined to be pursued by countless women in this life. Instead of blinding yourself with all the choices, why not leave everything to fate? Sitting in front of the flowers when sober, sleeping under the flowers when drunk, raising his hand to cover his eyebrows, he looked at the rising sun in the east. He seemed to see his past simple self, like the snow on the castle lawn, gradually melting, converging into a stream, rushing to the river of the town, and then to the sea never to return. It was as if he saw his tender self waiting downstairs under the hot afternoon sun with the ice cream he made himself. But the ice cream had melted and fallen on the concrete floor. In the end, no one came downstairs. These writing lives, read as Luther experiences, probably represent growth. Today the sun was shining. Winter had not yet passed, but spring was already restless. First, Liszt trained Trembling Woods for a while, letting it continuously release rock grenades to the point where it could hit wherever it was pointed. Then he went to train the 8 little ones. Storm, flame, rock, waves, thunder, light, ice, shadow. The 8 little blizzard beasts with majestic names did not receive his warm treatment because of their cute appearance. If they did well, they would be rewarded with jerky and milk. If they did poorly, they would be punished. Just like how he trained Dosen in the beginning, carrot and stick were the right way. After training the blizzard beasts, Liszt began his own chi practice today. Fire Surge and Fire Dragon Drill have been practiced by him to perfection. He was considering whether or not he should cultivate another chi secret manual. In the end, he decided not to cultivate any new chi secret manuals. Biting off more than he could chew, not to mention he still had multiple arrows to cultivate. The bowstring was pulled into a full moon. With his do chi attached to the arrows, he released his grip and the 3 arrows flew out in a triangular formation. In the blink of an eye, they hit the bull's-eye of the target that was 200 meters away. According to Marcus's teachings, as long as the Earth Knight grasped the basics of dual arrow shooting and dual arrow crossing, he would be able to become a godly archer and display great strength on the battlefield. However, Liszt was not satisfied. He had successfully trained 3 simultaneous arrows to a basic skill. He casually shot 3 arrows, and none of them missed their target within 200 meters. Next, he planned to cultivate the 3 spiraling arrows into a basic skill. The spiraling arrows would be even more difficult to control, and the lethality would be even greater. There is the blizzard beast guarding outside, the rock grenade fire is continuous, and I am in command inside, coupled with the flying arrows. I am afraid that no matter how many Earth Knight there are, they won't be able to get close to me. In the end, strength was something that one had to grasp personally. Only then would one have more confidence. Throughout the morning, he was immersed in cultivation, honing his fighting skills and taking potions scientifically. After luncheon, he patrolled the territory, then looked at the Siren Chi studying magic, and teased Ella, who was angry at being confined. Not long after, a servant came to report, "Master, Mr. Marcus is back and is waiting for you in the hall." Is that so? Teacher Marcus, please come to the study. A moment later, when he saw Marcus, he asked, Is everything going well on Black Horse Island? He reached out and motioned Marcus to sit down and talk. Marcus held the milk tea sent by the servant and said, Everything is going well at present. With the assistance of Russell and Griffin, the serfs have been managed with remarkable results. At present, the construction of the roads and houses on the main streets of Port Town has been completed, and the warehouse area of Black Horse Port is being prepared. Black Horse Port is an important port for the construction of Black Horse Island. All materials must pass through Black Horse Port, so a large warehouse area is essential. This time, bring more wheat flour with you and hurry up to build the mill. It is expected that after a while, the fleet of serfs from Tulip Castle will return. I will separate 1,000 of the 2,500 serfs and move them to Port Town. Understood, my lord. Marcus was very excited about the upcoming serfs. Now he was working with hundreds of people, and his efficiency was very low. He did not have the pleasure of a national war like he did in Flower Town. After talking about the construction of Port Town, the topic quickly shifted to the rubber tree, the 3 sprite worm triplets, and List was eagerly looking forward to it. My lord, the rubber tree worm stalk is growing well. According to your instructions, I have sent people to water a lot of compost next to the roots. The broken branches have begun to heal, the cracked bark has healed, and there is no wilting of branches and leaves. Last time, after List came back by boat, he asked Costo to carry a lot of compost for the rubber tree to fertilize. Sprite worms bred in the wild often die because of malnutrition. He did not want such an accident to happen in his territory. Once the sprite worm is born, immediately rush back to Flower Town to inform me. Understood. Have you counted how many rubber trees there are on Black Horse Island? Russell is in charge of this matter. He ran all over the island with trees and got an accurate number. There are a total of 573 mature rubber trees, and some immature rubber trees mixed in the bushes. He could not count them, but the total number should be more than 1,000. 1,000 rubber trees is not a lot. How is the rubber research on the rubber trees? My lord, it has been verified that the rubber is not poisonous. I caught some snakes, rabbits, pheasants, and deer. After drinking the rubber, they behaved normally, and the rubber did not solidify in their stomachs. The rubber was collected in a wooden barrel. After a while, the surface layer will solidify, but the rubber inside is still liquid. Did you bring the rubber back? Without damaging the rubber trees, a total of 10 barrels of rubber were collected, and all of them have been brought back. They are all sealed in wooden barrels. As long as the thin layer of hard shell is cracked on the surface, the liquid rubber inside can be poured out. Very well, immediately let someone carry the rubber to the castle. I want to do the experiment myself. List was in a good mood. He was still worried about how to collect and store the rubber. He did not expect Marcus to find a way. The servant took the order and left. List remembered something. By the way, have you refined the bee venom? It has been refined, Marcus said, solemnly putting the small pottery jar he brought with him on the desk. My lord, the jar contains all the bee venom. After my tests, the bee venom is very toxic, far more than 10 times more toxic than the fast-growing poisonous thorns. 1 drop can kill a deer. The deer is not a large animal, but it is not a small animal either. A drop of bee venom can kill a deer, indicating that it can at least hurt humans. It can be seen that the toxicity is really fierce. No wonder the 16 serfs were stung to death just because they were lazy. It can be called highly toxic. Chapter 295. The Siren Achi lay on a rocking chair padded with animal skin cushions and gently swayed her body. The rocking chair tailored for List's figure was a little too big for Achi, who was only 1.5 meters tall. Instead of staying in the shell, she dragged a long ribbon of seawater and lay down on the rocking chair. Without her feet, she couldn't leave the range of the shell. Fortunately, she could control the seawater and stretch it into a ribbon. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to get out of the shell. It was a very strange visual experience. Without feet, the area below her bare feet gradually turned into seawater. List has never been able to figure out what kind of feeling this is. He sat next to Achi and finally couldn't help asking, "Achi, do you feel anything below your ankle?" "Yes, brother, this seawater is a part of Achi's body. Although the feeling is not as clear as Achi's flesh and blood part, I still feel it." "Really? Can I study it?" List smiled gently. "I'm really too curious." Achi lowered her head shyly, and then secretly glanced up at List. "Well, brother, if you like it, Achi will study it for you." Humans should not have seen a real siren. Got permission. Of course, List would not be polite anymore. He immediately squatted down and touched Achi's ankle. The skin was delicate, smooth, and elastic, as if he was holding a mass of flesh and blood made of water. The tip of his nose seemed to smell a faint fragrance, which was Achi's body fragrance. The delicate touch made List's mind shake, but he quickly recovered and began to concentrate on his research. The area where the ankle and the seawater gradually changed felt a bit like gelatin. After casting magic eyes, he could see that the magic in this area was very active, far more than the magic in Achi's body. "Achi, what would happen if your ankle was cut off from the water belt?" he asked. Achi thought about it seriously and replied, "Achi should be very uncomfortable and injured, because Achi is not yet an adult and can't leave the shell." Well, List gave up this idea. "How would you feel if I touched the sea with my hands?" "I can feel my brother's hand. It's the same feeling as Ella and the bug baby swimming in the sea." "Well, how to say it, the sea is a part of Achi, but it can't be regarded as Achi's body." It's probably like what Big Brother said, the relationship between elves and worm stalks. Even so, List still didn't know what kind of feeling it was. Harming the worm stalk would injure the sprite, and in serious cases it could even threaten the sprite's life. However, most of the sprites would be able to survive even if the worm stalk were to die. They would be able to grow a new seed and grow into a new worm stalk. Even though their vitality would be greatly damaged, at least they would still be alive. Achi suddenly asked, "Brother, do you think sirens are a kind of spirit?" "I don't know, but even if it's an elf, it's still a sea elf, different from Ella." List touched Achi's calf and stomach, which felt more comfortable. "Look at Achi, your body is almost the same as a human body, but Ella's body is different." "Yes." Achi nodded. "Ella is like a soft jade. Achi and my brother are both flesh and blood. That's why you can master magic." List was finally willing to let go of Achi's legs. He stood up and rubbed the attractive blue hair. "Is there any new progress in your water arrow shooting?" "Not yet, but Achi has already found the reason." This book, Detailed Description of Advanced Concepts for Mages, has a very detailed record. It turns out that the reason why Achi's water arrow volley failed was because she didn't form a magic array in her body. Mages need to engrave magic in the form of a magic array in their body. List has studied magic books, but he just flipped through them and didn't go into detail. Are there any magic circles in this pile of magic books? There are a lot of them. Magicians like to write research notes on magic runes and magic circles. Achi smiled very brightly. "Brother, it won't be long before Achi becomes a real magician. I'm looking forward to it." Under the apple tree, there was also a rocking chair. List sat on it, lazily enjoying the sun. It was already past February 15th. Sure enough, as the serfs of Flower Town said, winter would be dispelled in mid-February every year. Several days of sunny days have melted most of the snow in Flower Town. The weather was still below zero, but it was worth going out to bask in the sun. It was rare for him to release the 8 little ones in Dosen. Perhaps it was the natural relationship between father and son. The 8 little ones were very entangled with Dosen, chasing Dosen around the castle. The castle servants have become accustomed to the dangerous and terrifying intermediate world of Warcraft. Sometimes they even forget that the Blizzard Beast is an intermediate world of Warcraft and just treat them as a litter of dogs. "Lord Baron, you are so relaxed." Elkson, wearing a magic cloak, came over. "Please sit down, Mr. Elkson. I have completed the potion configuration of the snow flame mushroom. It is surprising that this kind of flame mushroom, which likes the cold, has fire magic that ordinary flame mushrooms can't compare to. Please test this potion first, he said, handing over a crystal tube. The golden-red liquid swayed in the crystal tube. This is the fourth potion of Flower Town after Black Tulip, Ordinary Flame Mushroom, and Fast-Growing Magic Thorns. The Snow Flame Mushroom is a magic potion. The technology of planting the Snow Flame Mushroom in the greenhouses has been developed by the serfs who were stimulated by gold coins. After launching a major battle, 50 acres of mixed greenhouses were opened in a short period of time to plant Snow Flame Mushrooms. List hopes to harvest a batch of Snow Flame Mushrooms before the weather warms up. This potion likes cold weather and cannot be planted in hot weather. It is a seasonal potion. There are only 3 months of winter each year, and it can be planted about 2 or 3 times. However, its strong fire magic and its habit of growing in winter can make up for the production of potions in winter. After all, the growth of all kinds of potions will be delayed or even stagnant in winter. Drinking the potion in the crystal tube, List suddenly felt the flames rising in his stomach, several times stronger than the ordinary flame mushroom magic potion, and he almost cried out. The fire magic rolled in his body, crazily stimulating his cells to expand and absorb the violent magic. If there was a thermometer, List felt that his current body temperature was at least 60 degrees. This burst of magic power disappeared as quickly as it came. 2 minutes later, everything returned to normal. Calming himself down, he felt that the combat energy in his body had increased by a large margin. The effect was really violent. It's great, Elk-san. How many potions can you make? Unfortunately, the production of Snow Flame Mushrooms is too small. Now it seems that I can make 3 more Ice Flame Potions. Ice Flame Potion is the abbreviation of Snow Flame Mushroom Magic Potion. Hearing Elk-san's words, List was a little disappointed. It was a good thing, but there was too little of it. He felt that he should store the Ice Flame Potion. When the effects of the Flame and Thorns potions weaken, he can use the Ice Flame Potion to stimulate it. Chapter 296. As the sun shone on their faces, the working serfs took off their heavy cotton-padded jackets, shouted slogans, and raised their axes to chop the fast-growing iron thorns. The fast-growing iron thorns were ironwood-quality wood that would immediately sink to the bottom of the water. Therefore, ordinary bone tools could not chop them off. Iron tools had to be used. However, the Flower Town's bone shop had very hard bone tools, decayed. Ancient fire dragon bone fragments were used as raw materials. The bone tools of the bone shop were not sold to the public. Instead, they were numbered and distributed to the serfs for free. Even though they had long decayed and lost the magical power of the dragon, they were still dragon bones. List did not want them to wander outside the town. The dragon bone machete was used to chop the fast-growing iron thorns. The effect was similar to that of a fine steel machete, but it was more durable. The serfs had a dragon bone machete in their hands. It took them about half an hour to chop off a fast-growing iron thorns the thickness of an adult's arm. Unfortunately, the dragon bones could not be polished more finely to make a dragon bone saw. Currently, the iron saw was still the most effective in logging. A team of 2 could saw off a fast-growing iron thorns in 5 minutes. Unfortunately, there was a lack of iron. Iron was needed in all aspects, so the iron saw could not be made. In any case, the scene was in full swing. List stood far away outside the Garden of Thorns and looked around. Could be considered as a tour of the logging site. The Flower Town surf logging team was definitely a fighting team. At first, with crude tools and World of Warcraft, the huge Thorns Ridge was completely cut down. Not to mention the trifling Garden of Thorns. The officials headed by Gort were also very combative. They organized the serfs to carry out the logging work in an orderly manner. Cutting trees, cutting branches, transporting wood, gathering branches and leaves, replenishing and replacing damaged tools, providing hot water, and bandaging wounds. They worked in groups in an orderly manner. Fast-growing iron thorns are high-quality ironwood thorns under the influence of Ella. Although thorns are short shrubs and it is difficult for them to grow into towering trees like rock and stone trees, they can grow rapidly. They can be harvested with the thickness of an arm and used to make furniture and wood. Liszt said to the person beside him. The person beside him was none other than Viscount Trick Wildgrass's son, Aubrey Wildgrass, a big fat man. I felt the charm of fast-growing iron thorns in the carpenter's shop. It's amazing quality, and it grows even faster than weeds. It's definitely incomparable to weeds, but it takes 3 months for it to mature. It's really amazing, but it's not easy to cultivate it. Without Ella, its growth cycle may slow down by a dozen times. Judging from our planting situation in the Thorns Ridge, it will take about 3 years to mature. Even if it's only 3 years, it's still amazing, Aubrey said enviously. The nobles say that Ella's potion will bring you glory. These ironwood thorns are also a lot of glory. If Beer Island wants to introduce it, I can provide the roots of fast-growing iron brambles. Liszt laughed. The last kind of thorns that Ella lacked was provided by Beer Island. Liszt has always remembered this favor. Really? Then I have to thank you properly. Sell me a little more hops. How about I give you 30% of the share that I can control? You're very generous, Aubrey. Aubrey patted his belly. I also enjoy your generosity. The food in your castle is going to kill me. You're so fat. Can you go to the battlefield? I'm not going to the battlefield. At most, I'll follow orders of chivalry to get some achievements. Business is more suitable for me. By the way, Liszt, how about I sell your ironwood furniture? Although the Beer Castle channel is shabby compared to the Tulip Castle channel, our fleet is bolder and runs farther. According to the information Liszt had, the Beer Castle fleet seemed to have joined forces with the fleets of several small and medium-sized nobles on the outer islands to control a smuggling route and sell goods to certain areas of the Eagle Kingdom. Of course, as long as it was not smuggling weapons, the Count would turn a blind eye to it. After thinking about it, Liszt responded, as long as the profit is right, why not give it to the Beer Castle to sell? Today, Aubrey came to Flower Town as a guest to talk about business. First, he wanted to order more flower soap, and second, he wanted to get a share of the flower wine. Just in time for Flower Town to start cutting down fast-growing iron thorns, they talked about the sales cooperation of ironwood furniture. Aubrey wanted to cooperate. Liszt didn't want to always use the Tulip Castle channel, and the two hit it off. The luncheon atmosphere was very warm, and when the specific cooperation matters were settled in the evening, the atmosphere was even more warm. Gort, as the representative of Liszt, forced Aubrey and his party to the ground with the fragrance of flower wine. Finally, everyone was thrown into the public bathroom to take a hot bath. Just like any era, after the arrival of the privileged class, public bathrooms were suspended from opening to civilians. He did not keep Aubrey and others in the castle. Liszt did not like to stay in the castle with people other than his family. Moreover, there was the Siren Chi on the second floor. Aubrey and his party were a lot, and the castle could not accommodate them. He arranged for Aubrey and his party to live in the aristocratic residential area. With the current development of Flower Town, more aristocrats will come in the future. Should I build a guest house? There is no similar hostel building in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. All the aristocrats receive visiting aristocratic guests in their own castles. Liszt decided to open a precedent. After all, he had enough reasons. The castle was small and could not accommodate a few people. Not only would it not violate aristocratic etiquette, but it would also be praised for being warm and thoughtful. However, with the development of the territory, after he became a great aristocrat, he would no longer be able to use the guest house to receive guests. Otherwise, the guests would think that he was not valued and laugh at the poverty of the castle. He rubbed his forehead. Drink 2 more glasses of wine with Aubrey. Liszt was a little tipsy, he was not very sleepy, and he was not in the mood to write history. He had not touched the historical masterpiece Dragons Fighting in the Wild that he had vowed to compile for a whole week. He would rather bask in the sun than write when he had time. He rummaged in the corner of the study and found a wooden stick carved with a beautiful pattern. Is this my sidechak? Sidechak, like frac abier, is a standard of aristocracy. It is a decorative tool that reflects aristocratic demeanor and identity. In the hands of the king, it is called a scepter. In the hands of the aristocracy, it is called a civilizing stick. The civilizing stick can be carved with patterns, inlaid with gems, made of wood, or made of metal. List's sideshack is a wooden civilizing stick with tulip patterns carved on it. It was given by the count at his enfeoffment ceremony. However, since coming to Flower Town, he has not picked it up, let alone attended aristocratic gatherings with it. Young aristocrats are rarely willing to walk with a civilizing stick. I have several thorn crutches for dog training. Should I ask a carpenter to carve a high-quality, fast-growing iron thorn civilizing stick for me? List touched his chin and had a sudden whim. The civilizing stick in his hand is made of more than 100-years-old rock wood. It is of good quality, but Flower Town now has fast-growing iron thorns. Using a rock civilizing stick is not in line with his identity. Immediately, he ordered someone to call the person in charge of the carpentry shop. Carve a civilizing stick for me, take this civilizing stick as a sample, and engrave the name Ella on it. Chapter 297. After Aubrey and his party left, the town regained its tranquility. Flower soap, flower wine, gourmet food, and ironwood. There are more and more specialties in Flower Town. List sat in his study, looking through the government records sent by Gort and silently drinking milk tea. The net profit of flower soap is 5 gold coins a day. As long as the technology is not stolen or counterfeited, it can continue to monopolize the market and gradually expand its scale by relying on the channels of Tulip Castle and Beer Castle. No one should know the technical formula of flower soap in a short time. The soap maker, Bernal Bastard, is constantly improving the formula of flower soap. Compared with the original flower soap, the current flower soap, although the main ingredients are soap powder, pancreas, and plant ash, but a variety of auxiliary materials have been added. This makes the variety of flower soap more abundant and the cleaning effect better. Even if there is a clumsy counterfeit soap on the market, it will not have much impact on the flower soap. List picked up a quill and dipped it in ink and wrote the number 10 on a blank piece of thick bast paper. He hoped that the flower soap could achieve a net profit of 10 gold coins a day. If it was done, there would be no need to worry about the food of the castle and the blizzard beast. So, I was worried that the blizzard beast would eat me poor, but it was just a worry. As a transmigrator, I still have some stock in my stomach, and a casual sale can bring me a lot of profit. He thought with some pride. Flower soap is now the pillar industry of Flower Town. Food is also a pillar. Although it doesn't make much money, it has greatly improved the reputation of Flower Town. Now everyone on Coral Island knows that Flower Town has the most delicious food. However, reputation is not very important to the aristocracy. At most, people will pay attention to Flower Town and List. List himself doesn't pay attention to it. He developed these delicacies for his own stomach. What really makes him pay attention to is the upcoming liquor business. Next, eat meat or drink porridge. It depends on the power of the fresh flower brew. At present, the expansion of the brewing workshop has not been completed. The brewer sent by his brother Levis is already in place. He is learning brewing techniques from Frank distillers and others. His family has also settled down in Flower Town. 13,000 gene of iron has been shipped in 2 batches. Corn and other brewing materials have also been shipped in batches. The wooden, ceramic, and jade vases were currently being carved. Levis's tutor, Frank, also known as Frank, often runs back and forth with the convoy to supervise the progress of the brewery. Obviously, Levis is more anxious than List. Levis has taken some of the fresh flower brew to all the aristocrats in the 6 cities of Coral Island and invited them to taste the new wine. His desk was already full of orders. In another week, the first batch of flower wine will probably be brewed and then packaged for the market. The quill stopped for a moment. List wrote the number 50 on the thick bast paper. He hoped that he could make a net profit of 50 gold coins from the flower brew business every day. However, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He then crossed out the number 50 and wrote 100. Here, white wine could be treated as a luxury item. Moreover, it was a daily luxury item that the nobles flocked to. As long as he could capture Coral Island and Red Crab Island, he should be able to earn 100 gold coins a day. If he could capture Golden Island and Newland Island, he would earn even more. At that time, Black Horse Island can be fully developed, instead of secretly sending hundreds of serfs, working day and night, to barely build a few streets and a few rows of houses. When the rubber tree sprite worm is in place, List intends to immediately expand the rubber tree planting area. After the beginning of spring, the Black Blood Horse pasture will also be expanded. This requires a lot of manpower and money. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel lucky. Fortunately, I have the smoke task, which has rewarded me with 4 kinds of potions. The revenue from the Black Tulip is used to pay for the current construction of Flower Town and Black Horse Island. Barely enough. Flame Mushroom, Snow Flame Mushroom, and fast-growing magic thorns are left for me to take. The Black Tulip can bring about 400 or 500 gold coins a month. Basically, as soon as it enters the account, it will be invested in the construction of the town. Now it is the early expansion and money-burning stage. Just buying food alone costs hundreds of gold coins every month. The price of food is astonishingly high, especially in winter, when the aristocratic lords on Coral Island barely eat themselves and are reluctant to sell food. This winter, a lot of farmland will be reclaimed. I hope that Flower Town can be self-sufficient in food. No, I will be satisfied if it can meet 3/4 of the rations. After all, there are not enough sprite worms to increase the harvest. The remaining quarter of the gap, I will spend money to buy it. At this time, it was time to tighten one's belt and work hard. Only by experiencing hardship can one rise above others. List feels that the first thing to do is to ensure the quality of his life, so the expenditure of the castle is almost catching up with the standard of a Viscount Lord. It is also because of his extravagant eating and drinking that he was able to advance to an elite Earth Knight in a short period of time and rapidly increase the total amount of chi. The excellent bloodline of those great aristocrats, who were able to become a Sky Knight in their 20s, also came from eating and drinking. Eating World of Warcraft meat buns, drinking potions like water, and even a pig can fly, his uncle Masilo was a living example. He had a waste aptitude, yet he was still trained by Marquis Merlin to become a Sky Knight. He yawned. List is impatient to look at these administrative records again. He threw the quill into the ink box. Why do I need to know how much I spend and how much I earn every day? I only need to care about whether I have enough money to spend, whether it can meet my needs for life and practice, and then continue to grow stronger. He got up and left the study. He asked someone to call Paris. He was ready for a real battle and to sweat a little. After a hearty battle, he felt comfortable all over. He had a good appetite at noon, ate a plate of tomato scrambled eggs, and took a comfortable nap. Just after waking up, List received good news. Marcus has returned to Flower Town on the Flower. He hurried to the castle. Sir, rubber tree sprite worms have been born. Incredible. It's 3 sprite worms. Unheard of. Russell, Griffin, and I checked every 2 hours. In the early morning, it was my turn to check, and I personally saw 3 sprite worms crawl out one after another. When he said this, for fear that List would not believe it, he deliberately emphasized that he would personally check the tree. List was already aware of it. Therefore, he did not show any surprise. He just nodded calmly. I understand, Teacher Marcus. These are sprite worm triplets. They are admittedly mystical, but they are not impossible. When the flower is unloaded and loaded, we will set off immediately. He was surprised by the Lord's reaction. Marcus also suppressed his excitement and regained his composure. Yes, sir. Originally, the flower could not sail at night, and sailing at night was very dangerous. However, because of the sprite worm's impatience, List urged Costo to set off in the afternoon when the flower was full of cargo. Breaking through the sea, the waves splashed. Facing the sunset, they sailed at full speed. Chapter 298. As night fell, the flowers circled around before finding the Black Horse Harbor. The Black Horse Harbor needs a lighthouse, sir. Sailing at night on the sea can be distinguished by the stars, but there is no way to accurately find the location of the harbor. Costo said after stopping the ship. I don't have an architect now, and the Black Horse Island is not yet exposed. He got off the ship. Without any nonsense, riding Dosen, List went directly to the location of the rubber tree sprite. The crystal lamp illuminated the road, and he easily followed the bushes that had already formed a path to his destination. He cast Magic Eye. He saw the position of the 3 sprite worms, motionless on a branch. Without any nonsense, he began to climb the tree directly. For the elite Earth Knight, climbing the tree was a piece of cake, and he easily arrived at the branch where the sprite worms were resting. Under the light, 3 fat, milky white rubber tree sprite worms were lined up, not knowing if they were sleeping or not. They were almost pure white, even their eyes were white, and it was impossible to distinguish which side was the head and which side was the tail. Their fingers were long and as thick as a thumb. They looked like silkworms, but more beautiful and exquisite, as if they were living creatures carved out of jade. Even if List could see the sprite worms in the castle every day, he would still be amazed at their beauty and wonder. Little guys don't sleep. Have some jade powder for a midnight snack, he said softly, and the next step was the basic operation. He smeared the jade powder in front of the sprite worms, tempted them to wake up, and began to lick the jade powder. Then, he smeared the jade powder on his fingers and put it in the mouth of the sprite worm. He took a bite. He contracted a sprite worm. He took a bite. Then he contracted another sprite worm. He took a third bite. The last sprite worm contract was successful. At this point, the rubber tree sprite worm triplets were all contracted, establishing a telepathic owner relationship. Come to my hand. He stretched out his hand and caught the 3 chubby sprite worms. There was a wonderful feeling in his heart. It felt as if there were 3 vague emotions repeated in his mind, and the emotions of the triplets were almost perfectly synchronized. Everything was the same, and the reaction to List was the same. He climbed from his hand to his shoulder. He followed List and left the worm stalk. Congratulations to Sir for contracting a new sprite worm. Marcus, Russell, and Griffin, who crowded around him, congratulated him. List put the sprite worm into the jade box held by the servant and accepted it with a smile. You have worked hard to guard the sprite worm during this time. I have brought a barrel of fresh flower wine. You can share it. Thank you for your generosity, my lord. I also want to thank you for your hard work in building Black Horse Island. After a few polite words, they soon arrived at the port town and rested for the night. Tomorrow, List would return to Flower Town. He was not needed on Black Horse Island. Marcus, Russell, Griffin, the rubber tree sprite worm contract has been completed, but I do not intend to migrate the rubber tree sprite worm stock. The environment in that area is very suitable for the growth of rubber trees. If you have free time, you can organize a group of serfs to move the scattered rubber tree saplings around the cordyceps and plant a rubber tree garden. Yes, my lord. The next morning, List got up very early, because he wanted to communicate with his mount, Lightning. He rode on it for a walk and left under Lightning's reluctant gaze. Sitting in the bow, looking at the sea, he thought it would be another boring voyage, but the white clouds floating in the sky inexplicably moved his heart, as if there were countless sparks of inspiration bursting out. It was a familiar melody, quietly floating in his heart and lingering in his ears. Without hesitation, he quickly took out thick bast paper and ink, picked up a quill, patted it on Dosen's body, and began to record these melodies. A moment later, the melody gently dissipated in his ears, and dense notes were recorded on the thick bast paper. It's City of the Sky. He shook the thick bast paper, and the light in his mind had gone out, but his heart still echoed with the excitement of recording the notes. The melody that emerged in his ears was the familiar City of the Sky, comparable to Alice, or it should be called With You. This is the classic work of music master Hiroshi Hisaishi, the theme song of Hayao Miyazaki's classic animated film, City of the Sky. Even the popularity of this song had surpassed that of the film. He solemnly put away the music score that he had hurriedly recorded and summoned the smoke mission. The serpentines impressively changed. Mission completed. Reward: the melody of With You. This indicated that Dunico Hyacinth had received the letter he had sent. At the same time, the smoke mission conveniently unearthed the melody in his memory. The power of fate is really magical. Even memories can emerge. I wonder when I will be rewarded with memories related to cement. I should have seen and studied how to make cement, but unfortunately, I only vaguely remember the principle. Limestone and clay are mixed and ground, and then calcined in a kiln. He had not yet figured out what limestone looked like, nor had he found clay. He was temporarily powerless to develop cement. Once the smoke mission unearthed his memory, the limestone and clay images that he had browsed through would emerge, and he would be able to easily find limestone and clay. The same was true for glass. His thoughts just flashed by. The smoke serpentines had quickly changed. Mission: the fast-growing iron thorns have matured, and the carpenters of the carpenter's shop have also accepted the impact of new inventions. It is time to promote the arrival of the ironwood era in Flower Town. Please build a carpentry workshop and produce new furniture. Reward: 3 wild tea trees. Huh? He saw the reward. Turned out to be a wild tea tree. There was tea in this world, but it was coffee and milk tea. There was no such thing as tea. He had never drunk China tea. Even in the Knight's novel, he did not find any information about tea. He once thought that there was no such plant as tea tree here. He did not expect that he would be rewarded with a wild tea tree. It must be in a corner of Black Horse Island. Tea is a good thing. Drinking tea can be used for health care, especially to relieve greasy oil, digestion, and diuresis. If I remember correctly, in ancient China, tea was a strategic material like salt and iron, especially when trading with nomadic people in the north. Nomadic people mainly ate meat. Greasy food was not easy to digest and needed tea to digest. That's why there was the tea-horse exchange, where strategic materials and horses were exchanged for tea. Even the independence of the United States could be said to have been caused by tea. The Boston tea pouring incident in opposition to the tea tax law was the direct trigger of the War of Independence. The importance of tea was evident. List's situation was similar. He ate too much meat, especially World of Warcraft meat, which was more greasy and difficult to digest than ordinary meat. With the help of tea, he could better absorb the nutrients of World of Warcraft meat. This applied to most nobles. It is conceivable that tea will become another of my specialties. Chapter 299. This chapter is Fantasy Reaper 11 Reward Added. Not only did he want to build a carpentry workshop, but he also wanted to build a logging yard and a timber warehouse near the Garden of Thorns. He had already thought about it. In the Garden of Thorns, Ella could influence 3/4 of the magic ingredients, 1/4 of the ironwood, and a small number of ordinary fast-growing thorns. Ordinary fast-growing thorns were the source of all kinds of mutated thorns, and he still hoped that they could produce new mutations. In the Thorns Ridge on the periphery of the Garden of Thorns, except for areas that could be reclaimed as farmland, the rest was planted with ironwood. Only a small area was left for planting fast-growing thorny thorns and fast-growing poisonous thorns to ensure that they did not go extinct. In the future, Flower Town could actually be renamed Thorns Town. Whoa! Whoa! After returning to the castle, Ella immediately came out to greet him. When List took the rubber tree sprite worm triplets out of the jade box, it immediately rushed forward, grabbed one, and continued to shout, "Whoa, whoa! Ella, put it in the box in the worm room. Don't break it," List hurriedly shouted. Fortunately, Ella could distinguish the severity of the situation. It grabbed the sprite worm and played with it, but never dared to hurt them, because it knew very well that List would not allow it. This was the power of the contract which made it irresistible. The 3 rubber sprites were a little flustered. After being comforted by List, they calmed down a little and began to crawl around in the box sprinkled with jade powder. From time to time, they would bump into other sprite worms and say hello. They were triplets, and their minds were synchronized. Although he did not see the use of this, at least the number of List's sprite worms increased to 12. The initial excitement had calmed down, and he began to think, there are rubber sprite worm triplets, but there are no 3 rubber tree worm stalks, so did I make a profit or a loss? Overall, it was a loss. After all, it took 3 portions of jade powder to raise them, but the range of influence of the rubber tree worm stalks was no different from that of a single sprite worm. No. Suddenly, he froze. It is not that there is no difference. At least, it is not known that the range of influence of the rubber tree worm stalks is 3 times that of ordinary worm stalks. Also, with the birth of 3 at once, when it comes to evolving into a lesser sprite in the future, wouldn't the probability of success increase by 3 times? Staring at the rubber worm triplets that were crawling leisurely, he felt that this mutation was definitely not just a simple increase in numbers. There must be something magical about it, but no one had discovered it yet. Since he couldn't think of anything, he gave up on the thought. He crossed the aisle and went to chat with the siren Achi. Achi still hadn't succeeded in casting water arrow volley. She was focused on engraving magic arrays. She was very serious and diligent. She was studying magic books almost all day long. Sometimes List thought, don't raise the innocent and pure siren into a crazy woman like Curtis Truth. After all, there was something wrong with most mages' brains. Achi, take a break. Don't tire yourself out. I'm not tired at all, brother. Achi will be able to engrave the water arrow magic array soon. At that time, Achi will be the magician Achi. By the way, brother, do you think Achi should change her name? All magicians seem to have the surname Truth. Achi thought seriously. List couldn't help but smile. Achi Aloyd's Truth? Sounds very imposing. Achi shook her head and said word by word. No, it should be Tana Histi Europamini Seleno Lucati Fulcus Bonice, Cassandra Aloyd's Truth. Hearing this long list of names, List couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Why did a little siren who was born in the sea and had never even seen her clansmen have to give herself such a long list of names? Before he recovered from the shock of the names, Achi giggled. I'll listen to my brother. Call me Achi Aloyd's Truth. It turned out that she was just joking. He ruffled her hair hard. List sighed in his heart. The shivering little siren had learned to make jokes. Time is really a butcher's knife. He should protect her and not let the dirty society affect Achi's purity. The construction of the carpentry workshop progressed rapidly. There were 5 carpenters in Border Town, and they also brought a group of apprentice carpenters. Under their guidance, hundreds of serfs worked hard for a few days and built the carpentry workshop near the Garden of Thorns. It was a primitive workshop without any technical content. The sawmill was also casually set up. A few shacks were built, and the fast-growing iron thorns were sawed into sections and cut into sheets. The timber warehouse was even simpler. They just needed to randomly divide a piece of land, erect a few pillars, weave a roof with thorns and straw, and fix it to the pillars. This was a timber warehouse. The iron thorns that couldn't be cut in time were temporarily moved to the warehouse and piled up. After the carpentry workshop was completed, List also drew several designs for wooden furniture. This is the drawing of the drawers. Look carefully. When making cabinets and tables, remember to add the drawers. You have to fully use your imagination on the design. This is an antique shelf. It's very different from a bookshelf. A bookshelf is used to store books, while an antique shelf is used to store valuables. The lattice can be big or small. Like the rocking chair, the drawers and antique shelf were the other 2 new types of furniture that List had chosen. He was preparing to introduce them to the aristocracy. In fact, he could also consider a baby cradle, but poor babies couldn't afford an ironwood cradle. Aristocratic babies had servants to take care of them and didn't need a special cradle, so it was meaningless to invent it. When all the carpenters had gotten the drawings, List took out a new practical living product that he had recently thought of. It's called a clothes rack. As the name implies, it's used to dry clothes. As an aristocrat, there was no need to wash or dry clothes. It was all done by the servants. But when he admired little Lily, the maid with the best figure in the castle, drying the clothes, he found that the clothes were hung directly on a line to dry. When collecting clothes, especially formal dresses like the frac à brire, they were also hung on a wooden frame, which was easy to leave creases at the waist. In other words, there were no clothes racks. Modern clothes racks were generally made of iron wire. As the Grand Duchy of Sapphire lacked iron, it was impossible to use iron clothes racks. Polished wooden clothes racks with rounded support would not break the shape of the clothes shoulders. It was the most suitable choice for drying formal dresses, and it was also very convenient to obtain materials. Clothes racks, rocking chair, drawers, antique shelf. The carpentry workshop would introduce them one after another. But although these were all new types of furniture that were bound to cause a revolution in home furnishings, Liszt didn't expect them to bring much profit. After all, the carpenters of foreign aristocrats would probably know how to imitate them with a few glances. To occupy the market, he had to rely on the quality of thorny ironwood. The quality of ironwood coupled with its low price, such a household item was definitely the favorite product of small and medium-sized aristocrats. At that time, the carpentry workshop could not only produce household items, but also provide ironwood quality spear shafts and arrow shafts for Tulip Castle. The Flower Town's ironwood era would soon arrive. Chapter 300. It will take a few days for the carpentry workshop to go into operation. Liszt is now concerned about the flower wine that is about to go on the market. He went to Tulip Castle and brought a barrel of raw pulp to the Count. "Is this the flower wine?" The Count took a sip and nodded. "You make me look at you, Liszt. The liquor business is easier to make money than the potion business. This is a profiteering industry. The flower wine business also needs the protection of my father. Of course, I am your father. The flower wine has shown me many possibilities. Maybe it will become the biggest help for the Tulip family to climb the power ladder." The Count obviously saw the hidden profits behind the liquor. Levis, Lavera, you, and Lytton are the blood of the family. He felt that the Count's next words meant to divide the profits of the liquor equally. Liszt interrupted directly. "Father, I thought my brother had already reported to you about the flower wine cooperation." As he spoke, he glanced at Levis standing next to him. "Of course I have reported it. Without my father's approval, how could the flower wine be successfully launched on Coral Island?" Levis hurriedly said, "The result of my discussion with my father is that I will take out 20% of the profits and give it to the Tulip family for the use of the channel. The rest is divided between us two brothers. Liszt wants 40% of the profits and the remaining 60% is Levis's. Now it seems that Levis only took 40% and handed over 20% to Tulip Castle. From Levis's attitude, Liszt has generally understood and said, I also think such a distribution of benefits is very reasonable. Although my brother, as the heir to Tulip Castle, can use the channel at will, after all, he has not separated from Lytton. He should take care of his brother and leave 20% for Tulip Castle. As you said, Liszt, Lytton is also my younger brother. How could I not take care of him? Father, you can nurture Lytton with 20% of the profits. I won't have any complaints. The two brothers, one by one, they directly determined the distribution of profits, blocking any room for the Count to interrupt. Perhaps as a father, he feels that the value of flower brew is too great and he should take out more profits to redistribute, but for Levis and Liszt, this is absolutely impossible. Even Lavera and the others weren't willing to take them along, let alone Lytton, his half-brother. On this point, the two brothers were firm. The Count sat behind his desk and looked at Levis and Liszt. Both of them looked calm as if nothing had happened. He couldn't help but look gloomy. He drank the fresh flower wine in the cup in one gulp. He then put down his cup heavily. Should I feel proud of your shrewdness? It's only been 20 years since you've become a major noble. Have you really inherited the initiative that I'm looking forward to? Why has Tulip Castle begun to emit the stench of decay like all the other nobles? Father, I practice diligently all the time, looking forward to making meritorious contributions on the battlefield like you. Levis put his left hand on his chest and said solemnly. List didn't want to explain. He didn't need to explain anything. The development of Flower Town was the most powerful proof. He even had the mood to make a joke. Just like wine, the older it gets, maybe decay is an outstanding manifestation of aristocratic temperament. List, I'm not joking with you. The Count looked at his second son, who was getting more and more blurry in front of him, and suddenly felt that his authority as a father was crumbling. You didn't joke before. I'm pleased that you've grown up, but I don't want you to lose some family love. When he was a child, List was very afraid of his father. But now List puts the Count in an equal position between father and son. It's no big deal to quarrel again. There's nothing to be afraid of. The Count can't break his son's leg. So, he directly expressed his point of view. Father, maybe you think that sharing between brothers and sisters is family, but I feel that I hold an invincible sword in my hand and can protect my brothers and sisters. It is also a kind of family. I think what List said makes sense. Levis agreed. The Count was silent for a moment. He poured another glass of flower wine for himself and one for each of Levis and List. He raised his glass and gestured slightly. I hope you can all remember what you said today. Besides, decay is not the temperament that aristocrats should have. The atmosphere eased. List picked up his glass. He pretended to drink it in one gulp. He really didn't like to drink white wine. After drinking the wine, Levis suddenly said, Father, what about the top flower wine for the Grand Duke? I need to go to the palace in a few days to participate in a spring court meeting. I will bring with me the century-old tulip. At this point, the brief confrontation in the study ended with the two brothers protecting their own interests. In the corridor, Levis breathed a long sigh of relief. You don't live in Tulip Castle, so you may not know. After the flower wine came out, Madame Marie went crazy and has performed several crying scenes in front of my father. I almost couldn't hold on. Fortunately, your words today convinced my father. The owner of Tulip Castle is Lee William Tulip. Levis is just the heir. But Madame Marie and Lytton are special existences. They are doomed to not be the owners of the castle, so they can only find a way to get more benefits before Levis inherits the castle. Everyone is destroyed if they don't look for themselves. Of course, you can't think of others too badly, but you can't think of others as good people. List didn't know how Madame Marie's pillow talk was blown in secret. He only needed to know one thing, and that was to stick to his own interests. If he took a step back today, he may retreat more tomorrow. The former List was weak and could be bullied. Now, he wants to change to a new image and let everyone know that he, List, is not to be trifled with. If he was pushed too far, he could release Trembling Woods and cause a huge ruckus. Except for the Count, there is probably no one on Coral Island who can stop Dosen. So, it's not a joke that I can walk sideways on Coral Island. The famous flower wine has been on the market for a long time. In the end, it was on the market before March. There was no scene of waiting in line to buy it. It was not popular to buy it in such a way. The scheduled order has long been placed on Levis's desk. List only needs to pull the flower wine over, then classify the cans and give them to Levis. He doesn't even need to know who the flower wine is sold to. As long as he counts the bottles, his share of the profits will not run away. Of course, he calculates the shipping price. The cost of shipping to different areas is different, and the price will change accordingly, but List has nothing to do with it. He just gave it to Levis at the price of 5 silver coins for the wooden bottle, 50 silver coins for the pottery bottle, and 10 gold coins for the jade bottle. Just this wave. A total of 210 wooden bottles, 26 pottery bottles, and 8 jade bottles were sold. Gravel Castle and Beer Castle each bought 4 jade bottles of flower wine. The total value is more than 103 gold coins, which is about enough for the nobles on the island to drink for a week. It's a pity that before the Count left for Blue Dragon Island, he forced the flower wine to be sold to Tulip Castle at cost price. Otherwise, with Tulip Castle's consumption of drinks, I'm afraid it would be comparable to the sales of all the small nobles combined. List got 40 gold coins and thought about it. This is just the sales of Coral Island. Chapter 301. It will take some time to prepare for the export of flower wine. The output is not up to date, and the stability of the quality is slightly worse. March just arrived, and the second count went to Blue Dragon Island to attend a palace conference. By the way, he sold the best flower wine in a gem-inlaid crystal bottle to the Sapphire Grand Duke. Levis also left Tulip Castle. He went to Golden Island as agreed to visit the Golden Wheat family. He confirmed his marriage to Marquis Roderick's daughter, Loria Golden Wheat Ear. The job of selling flower wine was handed over to Frank. Liszt also handed over the sales job to Gort. The tone of the flower wine has been set, and the rest of the things are, of course, done by his subordinates. His own important work is to train the dogs and practice. In a flash, the sun was blazing on March 5th. On this day, the Tulip caravan ship returned, and the 2,500 serfs purchased by Liszt also arrived with the ship. The handover site was arranged at Flower Port. Since Flower Town has its own dock, there is no need to transit through the Coral City dock. 2,500 serfs, plus the loss in the last slave trade, a total of 2,700. This time the loss may still be a bit large, but the quality is good, and there are many craftsmen mixed in. Frank followed the fleet to Flower Town to hand over the serfs. The town has a plan for the arrangement of serfs. Therefore, there was not much confusion. The bilingual reception staff, who knew Serpentine and Wind language, under the command of the town officials, quickly completed the count of the number of serfs, the screening of skills, and the recording of identity information. A total of 2,226 serfs, of which 37 serfs may be seriously ill and cannot be treated. Gort returned to the dockhouse. He reported to Liszt. After Frank heard this, he directly counted on his fingers and said, "Then let's calculate according to 2,189 serfs. A total of losses. He calculated twice and found that the difficulty was a bit too high, and he unexpectedly couldn't calculate it. Liszt, who was proficient in the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division arithmetic, has already calculated 511 serfs were lost. Oh, right. We lost 511 serfs. Frank spread out his hands, not feeling embarrassed because of his poor arithmetic. People here are generally not very good at arithmetic. He did not have any negative emotions because of the death of too many people. He smiled and said, "If you continue to sell serfs, you can make up for the losses in the next transaction. Well, you can make up for 300 serfs. In addition, more than 200 serfs can be counted as normal losses." "Sure." Liszt nodded. More than 500 people had died because of the slave trade. For him, he had begun to become numb, but his heart was still somewhat stifled. If there was no trade, there would be no harm. However, if he didn't buy serfs, how could he realize the development of his territory and achieve his goal of riding a dragon? He could only apologize to the souls of the dead. Being born in this dog-eat-dog world was a tragedy in itself. A moment later, he put away his cat crying over a mouse fake compassion, or rather, his true feelings. Walking out of the house, he looked at the busy square of the pier. The serfs were being sorted. Karl Hammerstein of the patrol team was selecting strong men to form a new patrol team. The same was true for Rome Winesong. He selected the remaining strong men selected by Karl, arranged them into his worm protection team, and then assigned them to farm and guard the worm stalks one by one. Earth Knight Russell Londo and Rick Footprint were responsible for selecting strong teenagers and dividing all the children into groups. In the future, these children will begin to cultivate chi. On the way to Flower Town, they experience torture, but once they set foot on this land, they will start a new life. Butler Carter and Mrs. Morrison also took the castle servants to choose from the serfs. They mainly chose the right servants and the right children. Liszt's castle would eventually expand and become a castle with a name. At that time, a lot of servants would be needed. Mrs. Morrison, you can also choose a group of about 10 women under the age of 20 who look smart and have delicate features. The castle needs a group of maids who can take on heavy work. You can't take care of a lot of work by yourself. Carter explained. Mrs. Morrison nodded. I understand. I will select qualified maids. The clerks were busy directing the serfs, sending food and water, and arranging for the remaining serfs to be assigned to the various settlements to farm. At present, only the serfs were assigned to farm, and the craftsmen and workers were also assigned to farm. When there is a suitable job for them, they can be freed from farm work, resume their old jobs, and play the skills they have mastered. List walked to a rock and looked at the scene of the port. No one followed him, only Dosen. Suddenly, Dosen's nose twitched and he barked at the air beside him. "It's me, Dosen." Someone made a noise. Trembling Woods was still growling restlessly until List touched its neck. Only then did it calm down. He asked without looking back, "Why are you invisible?" "Nothing, I just don't want to appear. My sister was sold to Flower Town in the same way. It was Paris, the Black Dragon. Maggie was lucky. She was the first batch of serfs purchased by Flower Town. It was not the best season for slave trading. Every serf was wealth, so she was well taken care of on the ship. These serfs were very unfortunate. Many of them were crowded together, and when they got sick, they could only be thrown into the sea. Paris was still invisible, and her tone was low. Sir Baron, why do you think there is such a conscienceless thing like slave trading? Because they have not met a lord who treats his people well. At least in Flower Town, they will never be hurt again. List was just talking nonsense. He was a member of the evil, so there was nothing to say. All the responsibility was shifted to others, while at the same time he beautified himself. Other lords were evil, and he was the embodiment of justice, the lord who brought hope to the serfs. Perhaps his IQ was not high enough. Although List could not see it, Paris nodded in agreement. For them, it is really lucky to be able to come to Flower Town. There is no need to worry about food and clothing, nor do they have to worry about mercenary looting. I have liked the peaceful life here, but it will not be peaceful forever. In the near future, I will go to the battlefield to realize the truth in my heart. List touched the red blood sword at his waist. The ruby inlaid on the sword flickered, and the scarlet was enchanting. The light of the setting sun shone on his handsome face, looking particularly sacred and righteous, and his sapphire pupils could compete with real sapphire. He said loudly, "My horse, my sword, my gun, my knight, will spread my ideas of justice and spread my way of the night." Chapter 302. This chapter is Sex Part 5 More updates. The sun set. The glorious great lord, ruler of Flower Town, List Tulip, had returned to the castle. On the rocks of the dock area, Paris was still standing in the cold wind. She wanted to disperse the tall and straight figure, but she couldn't. On the contrary, the more she wanted to expel it, the more memories filled the figure. Finally, the figure turned around, revealing a face more beautiful than a woman's. The sapphire eyes were deep and charming. The pale blonde short hair was flying, and the corners of the mouth always hung a gentle smile. The raised arc was so pleasing to the eye. She thought of the first time she saw him, his forced calm performance, which made people laugh. The first actual combat practice, the immature but quickly mature swordsmanship, which made people marvel. The first time out to sea, the cold wind blowing on his face, as if there was a barrier between him and the world, which was heartbreaking. And a while ago, rolling in the snow, his face and her chest were almost negative distance apart. Every time she thought of it, the quilt would be wet at night. Even now, when she thought about it, she couldn't help but blush like a fire. What to do? It seems that I can't extricate myself. Her chest seemed to be squeezed by something, making her breathless. The moon rose from the sea, and the cold moonlight sprinkled on the world. She had involuntarily lifted her invisibility. Her curvaceous figure, which had been reduced again, exuded a hot breath. After a long time, as if remembering something, she suddenly turned around and escaped into the shadows. Only a whisper was left behind. Unfortunately, he is an aristocrat, and I am just a commoner. This world, the gap between aristocrats and commoners. It was clearly recorded on the thick bast paper in List's hand at this time. It was like a list of goods, and each name was a product. The final list of serfs had just been sent by Gort. There was nothing to see on the list of ordinary serfs and workers. He mainly looked at the list of craftsmen. There were no craftsmen at the level of technician or master on the list. No one would sell craftsmen with such superb skills. There are a lot of blacksmiths, a total of 5. Unfortunately, I don't have so much iron here for them to forge. List saw the list of blacksmiths at first glance. The Eagle Kingdom had iron dragons and was rich in iron ore. Naturally, there were many blacksmiths. There were 3 stonemasons, which were urgently needed craftsmen in Flower Town and Black Horse Island. The rocks produced by Dosen every day have piled up into a small hill. Repairing bridges and paving roads is completely inseparable from stonemasons. For carpenters, just as Flower Town was about to create the Ironwood era, for carpenters could speed up the process. The ironwood thorns were very hard, and the carpenters could not work very fast, so they could make up for the lack of efficiency by relying on their numbers. There were 2 cobblers, one proficient in making leather goods, the other in tanning leather. Coupled with the descendants of the old cobbler Phil's son, who was proficient in making leather shoes, the leather industry of Flower Town was tantamount to being established. The 3 tailors also came just in time. The population of the Flower Town was increasing, close to 5,000 people. The consumption of clothes was also increasing, and more tailors were needed to sew and make clothes. These 5 professions were the most common among craftsmen. Therefore, there were more people here. In addition, there were 2 bakers and 3 chefs, who were also popular craftsmen. They would become part of the Flower Town's gourmet culture and promote the development of the gourmet industry. There were no duplicates of craftsmen in the remaining list. A bonesmith could be sent to the bonesmith shop to speed up the speed of Blake Bonehead's family in polishing the fire dragon's bone fragments. A locksmith might be able to change the locks of all the serfs' houses. A cupbearer, whose water buckets were being consumed day by day, came just in time. A brewer could brew beer and rice wine, which could supplement the brewery. A barber could ease the busy work of the town's barber. Finally, there was a spice master and a sugar refiner left. Spice master? Flower Town does not produce spices, and I have never heard of anyone growing spices on the Coral Island. She is not very useful. Perhaps I can recruit her to the castle's kitchen to do some gourmet research with Mrs. Abby. After thinking about it, he decided that the female spice master named Simi would serve as Mrs. Abby's assistant. Thinking about it, Mrs. Abby already had 2 assistants, Yulia, a cook, and Seymour, a perfumer. There were also 3 kitchen maids, Irene Fourfingers, Ollie, and Carl Rossi, as well as several kitchen maids who came for an internship. This was a large team that could be used to open a big hotel. How about adding another baker, so that Mrs. Abby doesn't even have to make bread, and can directly help me study stir-frying? He couldn't help but clench his fists when he thought that the hometown cuisine he longed for was being realized little by little. He was moved by his wise decision. I will recruit the female baker named Aaliyah into the kitchen. Mrs. Abby will be in charge of gourmet research and development. Yulia will cook, Aaliyah will make pasta, and Simi will be in charge of mixing ingredients. My castle's kitchen will become the source of the world's delicacies. The work of the spice master was properly arranged. List's gaze fell on the last craftsman, the sugar refiner Callum. Sugar was an indispensable food seasoning. He didn't know if there was sugar cane in this world. There was no sugar cane in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Sugar was mainly produced from the cultivation of sugar beets, which were roughly similar to the mixture of sugar beets and sugar cane on Earth. The roots contained a lot of sugar. Flower Town had a small amount of sugar beets grown as a flavoring supplement. If he wanted to use them to make sugar, he had to have the help of a sweetheart worm and a sugar refiner. However, when he saw Callum's detailed introduction, he understood that he was wrong. Callum was not a sugar refiner, but a malt refiner. The production of malt sugar was similar to that of brewing wine. Wheat, barley, glutinous rice, corn, and other grain crops were fermented and then saccharified to get malt sugar. Very well, with a malt refiner, maybe I can develop a series of candy delicacies. Instead of hiring him into the kitchen, I will directly build a malt sugar workshop. By the way, I can cooperate with the peanut processing workshop to produce nougat. I remember very clearly that nougat is made of peanuts and malt sugar. Delicious nougat had a fragrant milk flavor, rich kernels, and malt sugar that became more fragrant the more you chewed it. He believed that once nougat was produced, it would open up a large sales market. Even if it was copied and imitated, it could still establish Flower Town's status as a delicacy. And most importantly, Liszt liked to eat nougat. Peanut nougat was full of sweet childhood memories. This delicious candy must be made to bloom in the new world no matter what. After looking at the list, he summarized, most of the ordinary craftsmen. Among the special craftsmen, the spice master and sugar refiner are unexpected surprises. He put down the craftsman list. Chapter 303. Dear Liszt, after receiving the new version of Sur Elise, I was so happy that I almost went crazy. I could not wait to grow wings, fly to your side, and play a song for you, or listen to you play for me in an uninhibited manner, just like that day on the dance floor when you played beautiful notes. You know how much I miss the memories left behind in the long Taro Castle. I have packed my luggage and was ready to go to the Coral Island and the Flower Town to look for you. My maid Lua can testify that she is in charge of the luggage. But my father stopped me because I was about to marry the son of a marquis without any emotional foundation. This is my destiny, and I cannot escape it. From the moment I was born a woman of the Hyacinth family, I knew that such a day would eventually come. I would accept the support of the family and become a tool for marriage. But I hope to see you again before I get married, to enjoy a moment of passion, and to dance to the sound of Sur Elise. Dear, you will come, right? You know that I am waiting for you here, eagerly looking forward to it. Yours, Dunico. The knight who rushed to the castle brought Liszt such a letter. The letter was sent from the Red Crab Island, and the sender was Dunico Hyacinth. After reading the contents of the letter, he could not help but fall into silence. Dunico obviously still had feelings for him, coupled with the complete version of Sur Elise that he had sent. He took the initiative to tease her, igniting her passion. She even wanted to come to the Flower Town to play the piano and dance. Thinking of the exciting scene of that night, his heart was suddenly filled with fire and respect. He could not wait to immediately take a ship to the Red Crab Island and continue his relationship with Dunico. However, he did not do so. Just keep it as a memory. The passion without emotion is over. This is not the life I want. If he wanted passion, then it was not that there was no passion in the Flower Town. Paris and Little Lily were both good-looking women with good figures. As long as he wanted to, he could definitely indulge himself. There was no need to look for Dunico. Therefore, after putting down the letter, he did not reply, nor did he plan to go to the Red Crab Island. He just put the letter in a night novel that he would not read again. It's my fault for teasing you. I'm sorry, Dunico. The passion had faded, and the smoke mission could not be kept. Moreover, he did not have time to go. It would be March 9th in 4 days, which meant that he would turn 17. On the 9th of March last year, he was enfeoffed as Baron. The next day, he ate the poisonous fruit of the Thorn's Ridge and became a completely different person from the inside out. Master, this is Mrs. Abby's luncheon menu. Please take a look. Butler Carter had already begun preparing for the birthday party. To him, every banquet was a tough battle comparable to the charge of a knight. He needed to be fully prepared. Liszt took the menu, glanced at it, and handed it back. Let's follow this menu. It's only my 17th birthday this year. It's not an important birthday, and there's no need to invite anyone. It's just a party for my followers. Mr. Carter, please be at ease. Butler Carter smiled. Master, your birthday is the most important day for us. With a smile, Liszt did not say anything. This was both flattery and the truth. In the castle, he was the most important person, and all the servants lived around him. "Brother, is your birthday coming?" "Yes." In the Shellwood building, the siren Chi asked curiously, "Will there be a lot of people gathering at the birthday party? It must be very interesting." "Does Chi remember her birthday?" Chi tilted her head. "I don't know. Chi only remembers that when she woke up, she was in a shell. Then she was very hungry, so Chi went to find something to eat. Living like this in the sea, when she has time, she will listen to the sailors on passing ships. Then, let's take the day we met as Chi's birthday, how about it?" "Okay, it's January 11th, no, it's January 12th. It was already past midnight that day." Chi remembered it very clearly, so her birthday was set as January 12th. Chi has begun to look forward to next year's birthday. "Will you celebrate Chi's birthday?" List said. "It must be celebrated. At that time, Chi should have become Chi Lloyd's truth. In fact, Chi can now be called the truth magician." Chi suddenly smiled slyly, stretched out her hand, and 2 water arrows suddenly appeared. She aimed them out of the window and gently pushed. The 2 water arrows instantly turned into a dozen water arrows, flying into the sky and disappearing. She has learned the water arrow volley that only magicians can master, and it is particularly easy to cast, without the need for a process of gathering power. List has seen Glanny and Elksun cast magic. Although skilled magic is also very fast, there will still be a more obvious accumulation of power. For unskilled magic, it takes a long time for a magician to cast it. This is also one of the reasons why the magician can't beat the night, and the night rules the world. Before the magic can be released, the night has already charged at close range. But for Chi, the water arrow volley is basically instant. This made him curious. "Chi, don't you need to gather power when you release magic?" "No. Chi has engraved the magic array into her body, and she can release water arrows through the magic array at any time. It's very easy and simple. This is the so-called genius magician." List could only understand it this way. If other magicians knew about this, they would probably commit suicide out of shame. The so-called magic that took them several years to master was only a few days for Chi. Instantaneous casting was a matter of course, and she could summon countless water arrows with a wave of her hand. The only pity was that Chi could only be compatible with water magic and could not learn other types of magic. This made her combat ability seem more monotonous. However, considering that she was a sea creature, the sea was her broad stage, and specializing in water magic was an advantage. Study hard. Chi Lloyd's truth. The magician is only the beginning of exploring the truth, and the future is still broad. When you become a great magician, you will be able to appreciate the true wonders of magic. At that time, maybe you don't need my help, and you will be able to kill Gyurumita yourself. Well, Chi will definitely become a powerful great magician and defeat Gyurumita. Having said that, Gyurumita has never appeared between Flower Town and Black Horse Island. I'm afraid that the siren has already left the sea and returned to the sea where it lived. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, the day of his birthday arrived. His sister Lavera sent a knight to deliver a batch of vegetable seeds. The climate of Falcon Town was pleasant and the soil was relatively fertile, very suitable for growing vegetables. This gift was very shabby, probably because she was still upset about List's birthday gift of flower soap. His grandmother, Madame Penelope, sent a potted plant. Perhaps thinking of the black nightshade that bred the black nightshade worm, she expected List to give her another one. However, List checked the potted plant and found no signs of magic. His brother, Levis, entrusted his tutor, Frank, to send him a magic equipment, a flame bracelet. The bracelet was carved and connected with red crystals. Red crystals with fire attribute magic could increase fire attribute chi. It was a very expensive birthday gift, and it should have been prepared before he went to Golden Island. However, what surprised List the most was, you're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.